Welcome to Romance Audiobook Library. If you enjoy these stories, please subscribe to our channel. Prologue. The morning after. How do people react when something unexpected happens? I'd bet it varies from person to person. One person might freeze and struggle to say anything. Another might scream out loud. Then there's the type of person who starts blabbering and just can't stop. There have to be all kinds of people. But which one was I? I supposed I was the type who'd freeze and struggle to react. Even when I overheard Nanami-san and her friends talking on that fateful day, all I could do was stand there and listen. That's what I was thinking. Anyway, as I gazed at Nanami-san's face as she slept, just so there's no confusion, I didn't sleep with her or anything. I'd slept in a different room, and I just now came in to wake her up. Apparently, Nanami-san was usually awake by now, but she was taking way longer than usual to wake up, perhaps because of all the commotion yesterday. That's why I'd been assigned the task of waking her. But how would she react when she did wake up? I was kind of scared by the thought, but also a little curious. MNGH hug? As I was still wondering, Nanami-san let out an adorable sigh and slowly opened her eyes. It seemed she'd woken before I could even say anything to her. It was uncanny, really, for her to wake up just as I was thinking. I wished I could see it. Nanami-san's eyelids began to flutter open and froze halfway. "Good morning, Nanami-san," I said. Seeing me, Nanami-san stopped any and all movement and froze in place. Then, after a long moment of silence, she finally let out a confused "huh." By the looks of things, she was the same type of person as me. She was frozen, unsure what to say too. Apparently, her brain hadn't quite caught up to the situation. With her eyes locked with mine, she remained wrapped in her blankets and didn't move an inch. It was almost as if she were imitating a pose from a game. Her hands still grasping the blanket, Nanami-san slowly sat up while keeping her body covered. Was she feeling chilly? She looked around from left to right and then, tilting her head, returned her gaze to me. "Where am I?" she asked. The study in your house," I said. It seemed she was still half asleep and confused by not having woken up in her own room. I sat down next to her in an effort to reassure her, and waited for her to say more. "Why am I sleeping here?" "Oh, you stayed over at our house last night, right? We were gonna chat before bed, but I can't really remember. Hold on." Suddenly, her eyes widened. "Where did you sleep?" Apparently, she'd completely forgotten what had happened the night before. How much should I tell her? It's about her, so I guess I should tell her everything. "Don't you remember, Nanami-san? Yesterday, you with that." I proceeded to explain what had happened that night. Nanami-san immediately turned red and slid back into the futon as if to hide. She formed a little steamed bun with herself as the filling. "Oh no, did I really do that? That's so embarrassing." She poked her head out of the sheets, evolving into a turtle. Then she poked her hands out as well and began rubbing her eyes like a cat. From a steamed bun to a turtle to a cat, her evolution knew no bounds. With Nanami-san now awake, I decided to lay down next to her. Adjusting myself so that we were at eye level, I turned my gaze to her as she continued looking bashful. "Do you really not remember what you did?" "No, I don't." "Wait, I sort of remember." Maybe. Hearing that, I felt my heart skip a beat. So she does sort of remember. Wait, she doesn't remember what I did to her, does she? No way. She was asleep, so she couldn't have noticed. I'm pretty sure I have nothing to worry about. My sense of guilt at the possibility of having done something wrong was building. Should I tell her now? Should I tell her I kissed her on the forehead? As if. I can't do that. But I also feel like maybe I should. What am I supposed to do? As I lay there conflicted, Nanami-san whispered softly, "I see. That I guess we didn't get to chat. Ha! I'm sorry. Please don't apologize. You had no control over it. I mean, who would have guessed, who could have guessed that a drunk Nanami-san would burst into the room, especially dressed like that? I deserved a pat on the back for my ability to keep my head and hold myself back throughout the situation. I mean, I had kissed her on the forehead, but surely that still counted as holding back. It'd be nice if you could sleep over tonight, too," Nanami-san said. "You know that won't work. Everyone was here yesterday, and it was kind of a special situation. Plus, I can't be a bother for so many nights in a row." "Damn." I guess you're right. Ugh, why did I end up falling asleep? I wanted to talk to you about what you thought of the date and where you wanted to go for our next one and stuff like that. She had probably asked to talk knowing full well that it wasn't going to happen, but judging by the tinge of sadness in her voice, her regret was totally genuine. Pouting, Nanami-san got up and did a big stretch. It was then that the blanket that had been covering her lost its battle against gravity and slid off of her. Still lying down, I followed her with my gaze and saw her look down at herself and freeze. It's not like I intended on looking, but the view from that angle really was something else. Talk about a discovery. Why am I dressed like this? She yelped, quickly scooping up the fallen blanket and using it to hide herself. So much for remembering what had happened last night. No wonder it felt chilly you came in wearing that. Don't you remember? Seriously, did I do something weird? I didn't say anything weird, did I? Instead of worrying about her own actions, why wasn't she worrying about me doing something weird to her? Could I take that to mean that she trusted me? Nanami-san held her head in her hands, trying desperately to recall her own actions. It's okay, nothing I'd started, but then I found myself unable to continue. Nothing had happened in a crossing the line sense, but she had felt up my stomach. Nothing happened, I finally said nonetheless. Your face says otherwise. No, no, no. You just touched my stomach a little bit. It's basically like nothing happened. Excuse me, I don't remember that at all. Remember, Nanami, she muttered. Nanami-san then returned to holding her head and groaning, though this time she didn't seem to mind when the blanket slipped off of her, as she was too desperate to remember what had happened. I stood up and reached my hand out to her, looking at her out of the corner of my eye. Shall we go then, Nanami-san? I suppose so, she said. She looked at my hand and, as if giving up, looked away and hung her head. When she looked back up, she finally took my hand and slowly stood up. Ugh, I'm more sleepy than usual. Then, with uncertain steps, Nanami-san started walking. I'd thought she'd let go of my hand once she was on her feet, but she kept a firm grip on it. She didn't seem like she was about to let go any time soon. I guess this works. Her steps are a bit unsteady, so I should probably walk with her in case she gets hurt. Can you walk, Nanami-san? Are you okay? I feel kinder dizzy. Is this a hangover? I know you're not supposed to drink until you're 20, but I don't think I want to drink even after that if it's gonna be like this. Nanami-san leaned on me slightly. I walked slowly, trying to make sure she wouldn't fall. Her body was warm because she'd just gotten out of bed, and I felt my cheeks growing hot. So this is how she gets after eating whiskey bonbons. Hot. Do people usually get this sick? I'd never had alcohol before either, so I couldn't say for sure, but if that were the case, I didn't want to drink alcohol either. Hey, Yashin, can you give me a piggyback ride? Nope. We're about to go down the stairs. Here, I'll hold you up while you try to walk. Dang it. Stairs were dangerous enough, but carrying her on my back while she was wearing such a skimpy outfit was dangerous in a different way. Hadn't Nanami-san realized that? No, she probably hadn't. She didn't seem to be thinking clearly yet. Eventually, we reached the living room. Sei-chan, Nanami-san's little sister, and Genikaira-san, her father, were cooking together in the kitchen. Her two friends, Atafuke-san and Kamonai-san, were helping out. Morning, Nanami-san called. Good morning, Nanami, Genikaira-san replied. Did you sleep Nanami? Nanami-san's dad was so surprised. He failed to finish his greeting. Next to him, Atafuke-san and Kamonai-san exchanged guilty looks. Seiya-chan, on the other hand, seemed vaguely amused. Oh, hi, Dad, Nanami-san said. Did you get home late last night? You know you shouldn't be drinking too much. No, I didn't drink that much. Hold on. That's not what I'm trying to say. Genikaira-san extended a quivering finger toward Nanami-san's outfit. He apparently hadn't noticed she was holding my hand. He then turned slowly and shifted his gaze to me. I looked back at him, straight in the eyes. They were gleaming slightly, as if he were trying to ask me something. Yashin-kun, he said, don't tell me the reason you slept on the sofa last night was because it's as you suspect, I replied, nodding slightly. Genikaira-san lowered his shoulders and approached me. Gripping my own shoulders firmly, He looked me in the eyes and said with much sincerity, "I'm sorry about my daughter. I'm amazed you were able to hold yourself back. That's pretty impressive." The apology was a bit much. After all, it wasn't that big of a deal. Still, it was true that I'd held myself back, so him praising me for it tickled me. I couldn't help feeling a little happy about it. Hey, wait a minute. I was able to hold myself back. I was. As I tilted my head, Jenny-Kairos-san leaned closer to whisper to me. In the good old days, I wasn't able to hold back. For a brief moment, I pictured the smile of a certain woman. Jenny-Kairos-san hadn't mentioned anyone in particular, but there was only one person I could think of, Nanami-san's mother. Jenny-Kairos-san and I nodded at each other and shook hands. Nanami-san frowned as she watched, no doubt wondering what we were doing. "This isn't anything you need to know about, Nanami-san. It's probably something only guys can understand." "Morning, Nanami." "Morning, Yashin," said Otofuke-san, who'd finally plucked up the courage to chime in. "Good morning, guys. Did you two enjoy yourselves last night?" Kamonai-san added suggestively. "Kamonai-san, why would you ask something like that? Both of you know nothing happened." "Morning, Otofuke-san." "Kamonai-san," I responded. "Good morning, you two," Nanami-san said. "Did you both help with the cooking? I'm totally sorry I didn't get up. I can help out now, though." However, as she let go of my hand and tried to step into the kitchen, her two friends raised their hands to stop her. Thrown off by their gesture, Nanami-san wobbled and fell back against me. "It's fine, you know. Today, we'll cook to thank you for letting us stay last night and to apologize for various other random things. Just sit back and relax. It's nice to take a break once in a while." "I see. In that case, I should probably help out too, or so I thought as I took a step toward the kitchen." It was then that Nanami-san whispered something. Although her voice was soft, she spoke clearly enough for me to hear. "I want to make Yashin's bento." With that, everyone froze in place. As she spoke, Nanami-san had seemed blissfully unaware of what she was doing, but she suddenly came to her senses and covered her mouth with both hands. As for me, I was frozen in my awkward one-step forward pose. I felt my face grow hotter. As if to match the speed at which my cheeks blushed, everyone else's face broke into a grin. They all seemed pretty amused and ready to tease us without mercy. "I see. So you want to make Misuma's bento yourself?" "Huh?" Otofuke-san asked. "Wow, I wish I'd gotten that on camera," Kamonai-san added. "Then I could show it to Tomoko-san when she gets up." Sayatan looked just as ready to tear us to pieces. "You have the hots for him this early in the morning. I envy you." One-chan. "You've grown so much, Nanami," Jenny-Kairos-san chipped in. Overwhelmed by their reactions, Nanami-san and I turned even redder and remained silent. I was sweating so hard that my back felt damp. The sweating was clearly from all the pressure, but I was soon going to find myself sweating even more. "Then leave breakfast and most of lunch to us. We'll leave Miss Yumi's bento to you," Otofuke-san said. "We'll just do the prep work," Kamonai-san said. "Oh, why don't you chat with Miss Yumi about this instead?" She took her phone out of her pocket to show us a certain image I had intimate knowledge of. It was the photo from yesterday of me kissing Nanami-san on the forehead. I felt Nanami-san gasp beside me. Jenny-Kairos-san wasn't looking at the phone, so he seemed puzzled by her reaction. I, on the other hand, was sweating more than ever, not just my back, but my face as well. "Hey, Yashin, can I ask what's going on here?" Nanami-san asked. She had a very sweet smile on her face and spoke in a very sweet voice. Sure, her expression was soothing, but I still couldn't stop sweating. All I could do was respond immediately in the affirmative. Nanami-san took my hand, and the two of us moved slowly to the living room. I hadn't been expecting the thing I'd meant to tell her, but I hadn't told her. I admit to come back to bite me now, but it was no use crying over spilled milk, as they say. As I frantically tried to come up with an excuse, Nanami-san stopped out of everyone else's earshot and whispered for only me to hear, "Don't get me wrong. I'm not mad or anything. I just want to know why you did that." Bringing her index finger to her lips, Nanami-san blushed slightly and smiled at me light-heartedly. She was looking forward to my explanation, or that's how it seemed to me. Although I was relieved to hear that, I was nonetheless confronted with the reality that I had to explain why I'd kissed her. That called up another deluge of sweat. Wouldn't it be better just to have her be straight up angry with me? I thought as I continued to search frantically for a way to explain myself. Chapter 1. Through the grapevine I was getting ready for school, so the routine was familiar: eating breakfast, changing into my uniform, etc., but to do so in a place other than my own home felt really weird. I was dressed in the same uniform, ready to leave from somewhere else. I guess I was the only one feeling that way, though. At least for Nanami-san, it must have been business as usual. "I'm off," I called to a different set of people as I stepped out the door. "Okay, have a great day, you too. Stay safe." Tomoko-san, who was wearing cute purple pajamas, rubbed her eyes as she saw us off. "Bye, Mom," Nanami-san said before lowering her voice. Wow, it's super rare to see my mom up this early. Scratch what I'd said before. Apparently, this morning wasn't exactly normal for Nanami-san either. I'd heard that Tomoko-san wasn't a morning person, but I hadn't realized just how true that was. "Don't overwork yourself, Tomoko-san. We are off," Otterfuge-san said. "Yup, it'd be no good if you ended up sleep-deprived and couldn't do anything. See you later," said Kamonai-san. They both waved to Tomoko-san as they left the house. Even while looking sleepy, Tomoko-san waved back. "But boy, I never could have dreamed that all four of us would be heading to school together. This is so nice," Nanami-san whispered as she walked next to me. "I want to do this every week." Although that seemed difficult to achieve, I, too, found the whole situation kind of refreshing. How long had it been since I'd last hung out in a big group like this? Maybe a group of four wasn't that big to most people, but to me it felt huge. During my middle school graduation trip, the group might have been larger, but I'd always hung out by myself. Even back in our room, I'd always fallen asleep before everyone else had. As for going places with people I'd consider my friends, the last time might have been in elementary school. At the time, I'd probably been, "No, let's not try to remember, or else I'll feel all hollow inside." Now was all that mattered. Speaking of current events, I went ahead and counted Otterfuge-san and Kamonai-san as my friends, but I couldn't help but wonder if it was okay for me to say that my girlfriend's friends were my friends too. I wasn't really sure how things like that worked. In any case, getting needlessly friendly with girls who weren't my girlfriend was probably bad. It would probably lead to misunderstandings even if they both had boyfriends themselves. What was important was maintaining an appropriate sense of distance. A sense of distance. That was important. If I got that wrong, I could be in for a shock. Just a few weeks ago, I'd shied away from hanging out with friends and found doing so to be a bother precisely because I didn't know how to maintain a proper sense of distance with people. I had to admit that came with its own comforts, but I'd somehow changed a lot since then. "What's what, Yashin?" Nanami-san asked. "Oh, nothing. It's been a while since I've walked to school in a group like this, so I was just thinking I wasn't really used to it. RAC. But it's fun to hang out like this, right? I feel like we're back in elementary school or something." Nanami-san seemed to have been thinking the same thing I had. The thought warmed my heart a little, and I couldn't help smiling. Right now, she and I were walking next to each other. The way our hands occasionally touched was both tantalizing and frustrating, but being able to feel her warmth each time was pleasant nonetheless. Normally, we would have held hands, but since her two friends were with us, both Nanami-san and I were holding ourselves back, even though they'd obviously seen us hold hands before. "Hey, you guys don't have to worry about us. Go ahead and hold hands already," Otterfuge-san said, noticing our predicament. "That's right. Come on. Hold hands like you always do. There's no need to hold back," Kamonai-san added. The two of them were walking a short distance away from Nanami-san and me. To be precise, they were walking behind us as if they were following us. What's more, as if to get a reaction out of us, they were now demanding that we hold hands. They sure seemed to be enjoying themselves. Nanami-san and I narrowed our eyes and turned around to look at them. Nanami-san even sighed a little. "It's kind of hard to hold hands when you're telling us to," she said. But you've totally been showing off how you walk into class holding hands with him," Kamonai-san exclaimed. It just feels weird when we're being watched from behind. I fully understood how awkward she felt. Feeling like we were being studied was making me feel a little very embarrassed, but for Nanarmi-san, that didn't seem to be the only reason. She looked down at my hand and then turned back to the girls. Besides, I don't want her to feel like I'm showing off being able to hold hands on the way to school when you two don't get to do that with your boyfriends. The three of us fell silent for a moment, until finally Audiobook-san muttered, "Geez, you're worrying over nothing." "Totally," Kamonai-san said. "I mean, I am jealous, but I still want the two of you to get to hold hands." Hearing that, Nanarmi-san seemed unsure of what to do, but she eventually turned a gentle smile toward them. "We're all together today, so let's just go as one big group. I mean, it's fine if that's what you want." "Is Miss Sumai okay with that, though?" Audiobook-san asked. "Oh, I bet Miss Sumai wants to hold hands with her," Kamonai-san added teasingly. "Oh, shoot. Now the ball was in my court. Just how badly did they want us to hold hands? I mean, it wasn't that I didn't want to hold hands with Nanarmi-san, but if she didn't feel inclined to do so, I didn't want to force her. To be honest, I finally said, I do want to hold hands with Nanarmi-san, but I also want to respect her wishes. Besides, we can hold hands anytime. I thought it was best to hold hands organically rather than do so because someone told us to." When I expressed that, though, the two friends smiled, looking slightly exasperated. "Wow, you sure said it how it is, Miss Sumai," said Audiobook-san. "Seriously, how can you just say things like that?" added Kamonai-san. They seemed impressed for some reason, but I didn't think I'd said anything that strange. I mean, why would I force Nanarmi-san to hold hands with me when she wasn't really up for it? It would only make her uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Nanarmi-san was standing next to me, with a shy smile on her face. She was also nodding repeatedly, her smile seeming somewhat satisfied. Seeing her like that made me want to take it all back and grab hold of her hand. Talk about dangerous. In the end, Nanarmi-san and I refrained from holding hands as we all walked to school, though the four of us were in this strange formation where Audiobook-san and Kamonai-san flanked us on both sides. For some reason, the two bombarded us with questions along the way. At that point in time, I hadn't even thought about it with going to school, as the four of us signaled to those around us. There's no smoke without fire. It's a saying often used when some kind of rumor arises, a saying that depicts how a rumor only starts because of a root cause, because there's some kind of reason. At least, that's my understanding of it. But did you know there's also a saying that has the opposite meaning? They say that flowers bloom where there are no roots that even a baseless story can spread, or something like that. Ultimately, a proverb is only useful once you know the outcome of the situation you want to apply it to, and only once everything is over and done with can you finally decide which saying best applies. I mention all this now because a rumor had begun circulating around school, a rumor about me. I thought the rumor was the perfect candidate for applying the flowers bloom saying because it seemed so baseless to me. But to the people around me, I'd apparently done something to cause the spread of such a rumor. Even though that rumor seemed absurd to the people involved, it was one that seemed well-founded to the people spreading it. To get to the point, there wasn't actually just one main rumor, but three. Yashin Mitsumai was dumped by Nanarmi Barato. Yashin Mitsumai may move on two other girls even though he's dating Nanarmi Barato. Yashin Mitsumai has a harem of 3 gyaru. Ugh! These rumors are giving me a headache. Incidentally, these were just the 3 main rumors. In addition to these, many more rumors had grown arms and legs, rumors with every kind of variation imaginable that were walking around and spreading. I couldn't even figure out what had happened. Is it just me, or is the first rumor the only one that seems within the realm of possibility? In fact, it's the exact opposite of the other two. How do rumors like that start up in the first place? You might ask. I'd like to offer an explanation, although it's mixed in with some of my own speculations. First, the day after our aquarium date, Nanarmi-san and I had walked into the classroom separately. That really had just been a coincidence. Right after we'd arrived at school, I'd gotten a stomachache, so I'd ended up parting ways with Nanarmi-san and her 2 friends. I mean, I wasn't exactly used to the whole sleeping over thing, so my body was reacting funny, you know. But it's no use making excuses. Regardless, because of that, Nanami-san and her friends had entered the classroom first, followed by me later on. But if that had been the only incident, rumors like these wouldn't have started. The next factor in all of this was my new haircut. Let me just start by saying that this wasn't one of those tropish turn of events where I became all popular with the girls because I got my locks snipped, making Nanami-san all jealous. Rather, the problem was with me with my new haircut, walking into the classroom by myself with my new haircut. Not only had I not entered the classroom holding hands with Nanami-san, but I had also changed my appearance. I can only assume that those two factors combined had bred unnecessary suspicion in the minds of those around us. In reality, it was probably rarer for us to actually walk into the classroom holding hands than walking in alone or not holding hands. But then, having seen us do it a few times, our classmates had started murmuring among themselves because we hadn't done it just that once. The third factor that had most likely contributed to my torment was that several students had witnessed the four of us walking to school together, that is, all four of us walking together with me not holding hands with Nanami-san. Witnessing such an unreal scene must have fired up the imaginations of a good number of our peers. So there you have it, the three routes that had most likely led to the three main rumors going around school. Which route had led to which rumor is probably obvious, but who would have thought a haircut would lead people to think I'd gotten dumped? I mean, I'd seen that kind of stuff in manga, but still, as if that wasn't enough, rumors spread way faster than I'd ever imagined. I mean, most high school students have smartphones nowadays. By late Monday morning, the rumors had already spread all over school. By the time I even heard about them, they had evolved to the point where I'd apparently been dumped because I'd cheated on Nanami-san. Perhaps it was my fault for not going along with Nanami-san's request of styling my hair. If I'd used wax and taken a little more care with my appearance, maybe none of these rumors would have started. Actually, no. Maybe styling my hair would have added more fuel to the fire. If I'd done myself up and come to school with Nanami-san and the others, it might have made the rumors in the harem vein increase in credibility. All in all, perhaps I'd done the right thing. The students in our class had seen me and Nanami-san talking about our date, so they didn't seem to believe the rumors. The problem, though, was with the students who weren't in our class. As a side note, back when I hadn't yet heard the rumors, I had only registered that people were giving me weird looks in the hallway. Nanami-san and her friends hadn't heard the rumors until pretty late in the day either. I only found out because a certain someone told me, and that certain someone was Shigetsu-senpai. Actually, maybe saying he told me about them wasn't entirely accurate. During break, Shigetsu-senpai had practically barged into my classroom. The sudden appearance of a senior, not to mention the star of the basketball team, had sent the class into an uproar. Some of the girls had had hearts in their eyes at the sight of him, but he hadn't seemed to care about them one bit. As soon as senpai saw me, he stormed up to me and exclaimed, "Nashin-kun, is it true you cheated on Barato-kun and made her mad and ended up getting dumped? There's no need to worry, since it must all be a misunderstanding. Come, I'll apologize with you. If you apologize with every bit of sincerity you have, I'm sure Barato-kun will understand it was all just a mistake." That was the first time I'd even heard about a rumor going around. With no regard to me or my confusion, Shigetsu-senpai continued talking to me about how I could make up with Nanami-san. Right. Senpai, Nanami-san is sitting right next to me. Wait, I haven't been dumped by Nanami-san. See, she's right here, I said timidly as I gestured toward Nanami-san next to me. Senpai, who was still yelling, seemed not to have noticed Nanami-san at all, because when he finally did see her, he tilted his head quizzically. What's going on then?" he asked. "Right, that's what I want to know. What's this about me cheating on Nanami-san and making her angry?" Apparently, that was what Shigetsu-senpai had heard to make him come rushing right over, with the still confused senpai standing before her. Nanami-san, as if trying to prove I hadn't been dumped by her, silently hugged my head to her chest. What are you doing, Nanami-san? We are in the classroom, I thought, immediately panicking. Shigetsu-senpai, on the other hand, seemed to feel the opposite. Seeing the two of us together, he sighed in relief. What the hell? What a bullshit rumor. With that, he burst into what seemed more like annoyance than anger. I, on the other hand, was more concerned with the contents of the rumor. Nanami-san and I had finally learned of the strange rumors going around, but before I could ask Shiatsu-senpai about the details of the rumor, I heard the sound of a phone camera snapping in a flurry, followed by Otofuke-san's voice. "Here you go, Nanami. I got some good ones." "Oh, you're right. Send them to me." Before I even knew what was going on, Otofuke-san had taken photos of Nanami-san holding my head to her chest and was now showing them to us. "Wait, what are you doing?" I thought. Nanami-san looked thrilled, so I couldn't even say anything. "Do you want these photos too, Yashin?" Nanami-san asked, showing them to me. I suppose I do," I said somewhat hesitantly. With a sly grin on her face, Nanami-san sent me the photos. Seeing them made me ruminate on the softness I'd felt against my head and wonder if it had been the same back at the aquarium. "So, Shiatsu-senpai, what's this about a rumor?" I asked once my head was out of the clouds. "You know, it really doesn't help if you try to look all serious when just a moment ago you were getting hugged and grinning like an idiot." Did I really look like that? I couldn't keep touching my face to check. With an exasperated look in his eyes, Shiatsu-senpai told us about the rumors that were going around school. Nanami-san and I, and even Otofuke-san and Kanonai-san, finally heard about the details. "Wow, rumors like that." I said, maybe we should have held hands this morning," Nanami-san mumbled. Otofuke-san was stunned. "The Sumai has a harem, and it's us." "A a harem ha. Hey, Miss Sumai, you want to make a harem with us?" "No, Kamonai-san, I do not." Seeing our respective reactions, Shiatsu-senpai gave a slight nod. I knew the rumors were unreliable. I'm glad I came to confirm. "Hey, how's about you let me do my part to let everyone know the rumors are bogus? If I text the basketball team's group chat, I'm sure we can get things under control." "But you came offering to apologize to Nanami-san with me, didn't you, senpai? Didn't you half believe the rumor?" I asked. "What are you talking about?" "I said that because I was certain you'd never do such a thing." It was true that he had said it must all be a misunderstanding. For better or worse, he really was a straight shooter who said what he meant and meant what he said. Now he was laughing merrily. Nanami-san and I looked at each other and smiled. "In that case," I said to senpai, "I'd really appreciate it. Of course, leave it to me. But what utter crack! Who in their right mind would spread trash like this? I'll sentence the culprits to a full regimen of the basketball team's training from hell. Now then, Yashin-kun, best wishes to you and Barato-kun." And just like that, Shiatsu-senpai left fuming, but with a smile on his face. Shiatsu-senpai really had changed. He seemed to be genuinely rooting for us now, and he was also calling me by my first name. I was pretty sure he'd called me by my last name before then. Those were the supreme skills of the extrovert, I supposed. But seriously, I had no idea rumors like that were even going around, Otofuke-san said. "Yeah, for real. They didn't come up in the class group chat." "Maybe they didn't want to ask," Kamonai-san replied. "What, so the two of them didn't know either?" "The class group chat on a messaging app, I assumed. If no one had mentioned it there, then maybe individuals were getting their information elsewhere. I'm not gonna dwell on the fact that I didn't know about that group chat. Yeah, I just won't even think about it. Even if I did join it, I probably wouldn't have anything to contribute. I'd exchanged contact info with Nanami-san, so that was more than enough. Regardless, we'd managed to clear up the misunderstanding with Shiatsu-senpai. Now we just had to wait patiently until the rumors died down. They do say a wonder lasts but 9 days, though having to put up with all the nonsense chatter for much more than a week did sound like a bother. In any case, everyone'll get bored soon, I thought. It wasn't until lunch break that the real turmoil began. While Nanami-san and I were sitting on the school rooftop, eating lunch together as usual, loads of people who'd likely heard the rumors by now came to pay us a visit. And I mean loads and loads of people. The first to show up were Nanami-san's girlfriends. Unlike me, Nanami-san had tons of friends, containing everything from Gyaru-type girls to studious girls, quiet, timid-looking girls to hardcore martial artists. The gathering sure was diverse. and the reason all of them had gathered at once was that they all intended to console Nanami-san. As I said earlier, the rumors were evolving at an alarming rate. Nanami-san's friends, angered by the various versions they'd heard, had gathered together without anyone explicitly saying that they should. Rumors were a horrifying thing. At first, they'd all seemed angry, so much so that both Nanami-san and I had felt more than slightly intimidated. All the girls surrounding us thought that Nanami-san, whether she'd dumped or been dumped by her first boyfriend, must have been heartbroken. Some worried that she might feel uncomfortable around guys because of it. Others were intent on beating me to a pulp if the cheating allegations were proven true. Whatever their thoughts, they had all come to comfort their friend, who they believed must be heartbroken. Despite it all, I was really happy to see just how much everyone liked Nanami-san. I was also a little bit scared of the way the martial artists were so ready to kick my ass. At least they'd come to confirm the situation with Nanami-san first, rather than beating me to a pulp before hearing the whole story. In the end, I'd make it out alive. The next to gather were the guides. They'd all come together with the intention of asking out Nanami-san, who they believed was now single. They'd somehow all come to the joint conclusion that if Nanami-san had been willing to date someone like me, they too might have a shot at dating her. Unlike with the girls, I wasn't at all happy with the fact that Nanami-san was liked by so many guides. After all, they liked her in a very different sense. Still, I couldn't help but feel a dark and sinister sense of superiority. I mean, even though all this was because of a dare, I was Nanami-san's boyfriend. No, this is no good. I shouldn't get all full of myself like this. I wasn't happy, but I also kind of was. My emotions were all over the place, but at the very least, I knew I shouldn't let it get to my head. That wouldn't lead to anything worthwhile. In fact, I would do better to realize just how many guys were ready to date Nanami-san in my stead. I would have to stay on my toes, prepared to take on any future rival. For the time being, though, I could say that everyone around us was having their hopes, dreams, and delusions shattered before their very eyes. I mean, I couldn't help it if they both guys and girls had decided to show up just as Nanami-san was about to feed me lunch with her own chopsticks. Who's to say if their timing was good or bad? Once they'd gathered, everyone saw me and Nanami-san eating lunch together and heaved a deep sigh, the girls from relief, the guys from disappointment. The implication of their sighs differed, but they managed a beautiful harmony nonetheless. Geez, aren't you guys worrying a bit too much? I'm grateful you all came to find me, but Yashin and I are totally in love with each other. Look, we even took this picture. Nanami-san smiled brightly as she showed her phone to the group, shooting us exasperated looks. I had thought she was going to show them the photo Fuchs-san had taken in the classroom, but the group lost their minds when they saw the photo before them. Like a ripple effect, a bewildered panic spread as more people caught sight of it. They're acting strange, right? Everyone was looking back and forth between me and Nanami-san. Some of the girls were even blushing. What was going on? Sure, being hugged like that was kind of embarrassing, but hugs weren't the kind of thing that should provoke so much blushing. As I continued to wonder, I looked down at Nanami-san's phone and saw the photo being displayed. It was one of me, Nanami-san, and Yuki-chan. It was that photo, the one that made us look like a family of three. Nanami-san, isn't that the wrong one? I'd exclaimed. Whoops, it's actually this one. This is the one I meant to show, she cried. Nanami-san hurriedly switched to a different photo, but it was too late. All the girls in front of us were looking at us with eyes filled with curiosity, ready to bombard Nanami-san with questions. The boys, on the other hand, looked as if they'd lost all hope. Some of them even fell to their knees or put their hands on my shoulder and said, "I wish you two all the happiness," before leaving. With that, even as they continued looking at us, everyone eventually left of their own accord, with no further commotion or fuss. Although there had been quite an uproar, Nanami-san and I were able to finish eating our lunch in peace. That said, I still didn't feel like all our problems were solved. Hey, Nanami-san, you don't think a new rumor's gonna go around now, do you? I'm not sure, but, well, if it's that kind of rumor, I don't really mind. Excuse me. Oh, it'll be fine. I'm sure everyone'll laugh off all the weird rumors. Despite my worries, Nanami-sen didn't seem terribly concerned. "There's no way we shouldn't mind about this," I thought. Maybe it isn't so bad for me, but her reputation could be called into question. But even as I thought that, Nanami-sen kept fiddling on her phone, not at all bothered about what had transpired. I mean, based on common sense, you and I couldn't possibly have had a kid together. But if a rumor like that did start, maybe we could just ask Yuki-chan's mom to explain for us. Nanami-san was spot on about the thought going through my head. Even though I didn't articulate it, what she'd said was probably right. "You exchanged contact info with her?" I asked. "Yeah, I figured. Why not? I mean, Yuki-chan was the cutest. Just as you'd expect from Nanami-san, her communication skills were off the charts. There was no way I could have pulled off something like that. In the end, her showing people that photo of us and Yuki-chan turned out to be a good thing. When several rumors make their way around, the one with the most impact spreads the fastest. In this case, the fact that the rumors from that morning had been proven wrong by lunch break probably added to that speed. By the time school got out, the rumors had changed once again, having been updated to the following: Yoshin Mitsumai and Nanami Barato hang out with a small child on the weekends as if they were family, and those two are basically married. Shibasa Senpai had probably also done his part. Maybe, as Nanami-san had said, the girls who'd gathered at lunch had also helped to dispel the baseless rumors. Perhaps this was what they called turning curses into blessings. No, wait, was this a blessing? Well, at least we'd managed to stop any weird rumors in their tracks. Now we could just sit back and relax. At least, that's what we thought, as we let ourselves relax a bit too much. It was now after school. Nanami-san was standing before me like a prisoner of war, unable to escape the guards surrounding her. The guards were the girls who'd gathered around us at lunch, as well as Audiobook-san and Kamonai-san. "All righty then, Mr. Boyfriend. We are gonna borrow Nanami for a bit. I'm sorry, Yosh and I'll be sure to message you constantly. Let's meet up later so we can go shopping together, okay? No problem. Have fun." To explain what was going on. Apparently, the girls wanted to hear how things were progressing between me and Nanami-san, so they had organized a girls-only meeting. It seemed our progress had been somewhat shrouded in mystery so far, so everyone was itching to hear more. However, while the girls had been working up the courage to ask, the perfect occasion for them to do so had arisen: the spread of all the rumors, as well as them seeing that photo. Although the photo had overwritten said rumors, it had made the girls' curiosity explode. On any other day, Nanami-san would probably have refused to go along with a meeting like that, but since both she and I were grateful for the girls' help in dispelling the rumors, she had reluctantly given in. Nanami-san had her own socializing to do, and since Audiobook-san and Kamonai-san were there, she would be in safe hands. After seeing the girls off, I set off on my own mission. My destination was the usual shopping mall. Since I'd only been going there with Nanami-san lately, it had been a long time since I'd last visited there alone. Actually, had it only been 2 weeks. Wow, I was losing track of time. But being by myself right now was actually a good thing. I wasn't going to do anything strange, but ever since our date the other day, I'd been toying around with an idea. During our aquarium date, I'd realized how nice it felt to receive something handmade. The happiness of being able to eat Nanami-san's homemade bento even on a weekend had been incomparable. That was why I wanted to make her something. This was just my opinion, but just because a gift was handmade, that didn't mean it was only the thought that counted. The gift itself was important too. Food was probably a good idea, since it seemed casual and didn't feel bogged down with meaning. So, for a while, I'd considered giving her a food item that I'd prepared myself, but given that I was still learning how to cook, I had ultimately decided I didn't feel comfortable cooking something for her yet. She would probably be happy regardless of what I made her, but if possible, I wanted to make her something that she could keep. That was what was on my mind while I was chatting with Baron-san and the others, which in turn reminded me of what Baron-san had said to me a while ago. "Baron, if you want to give her a gift, you'd better wait till your 1-month anniversary or something." That's right, our 1-month anniversary. And it was only 2 weeks away. To both me and her, that day was significant because that was the time limit for Nanami-san's dare. I didn't know what she would decide to do on that day. Maybe she would break up with me right then and there. Or maybe she wouldn't do anything. Or maybe she would try to celebrate the occasion in a big way. I still didn't know for sure how she really felt. I could only imagine. That was why, after I'd finished up in the group chat, I decided one thing. On our 1-month anniversary, I would confess to her for real. The decision was tied to the dream I'd had while we were on our aquarium date. In the dream, I'd told Nanami-san with all my sincerity that I liked her, and I wanted to do that in real life as well. I also wanted to use that occasion to give her a handmade gift to accompany my heartfelt confession to her and to commemorate our 1 month together. I wonder if that'll feel like a bit much, I muttered, doubting myself as usual. This was where my scarce, or rather, total lack of experience with women got in my way. I didn't know what actions were considered appropriate, so I was practically fumbling my way through the dark, lost and confused. It was very like me to be unsure of myself, even after I'd made my decision. Regardless, I wanted to do everything I could so that I'd have no regrets. I felt I would be more comfortable giving Nanami-san something handmade rather than something expensive. Plus, I was hoping she would be much happier with something I'd made myself. That was why I was considering making her a necklace out of resin. At first, I'd considered making her a ring, but not only did rings look difficult to make, they also seemed to have way too much emotional weight attached to them. That made a handmade ring a no-go. I was, however, able to find numerous videos online with instructions on how to make a necklace, and the materials were fairly inexpensive. As a gift, a necklace seemed far less loaded with meaning than a ring did. That was why I was taking advantage of my time alone to come to the mall and gather the materials. However, isn't this cute, Nanami-san? I called when I wasn't thinking. Damn it, I'm here alone. Now I've made myself look like a weirdo. That was a perfect 10 for creepiness. From that point on, I did my best not to say anything out loud, but no matter what I saw or touched, my thoughts trailed back to Nanami-san. Is this because I'm thinking of a gift for her? After that, I managed to buy the materials that spoke to me, making sure to get some extra, just in case. I walked around the mall while Nanami-san texted me from time to time, but I don't know, I just couldn't seem to calm down. Something didn't feel right. I feel lonely, I said out loud. It was my own muttering that made me realize my predicament. Oh, I get it. I'm lonely. I was lonely because Nanami-san wasn't with me. I mean, the whole time from Saturday until that morning, I'd been together with Nanami-san. With her suddenly gone, of course I'd feel a sense of loss. The feeling was unfamiliar, so it had taken me a while to realize what it was. Given just how much I'd changed, I was in no position to say anything about Shigetsu-senpai. Was this a good change, though? With my purchases stashed away in my bag, I sat down on a mall bench and looked up at the ceiling. Nanami-san had messaged me saying she'd finished her meeting with the girls and that she was heading over to meet me. Seeing that message, I muttered to myself again, this time consciously, "Nanami-san, I can't wait to see her." In response came the voice I'd been waiting to hear, the voice I hadn't been expecting to hear yet at all. "Me too. I couldn't wait to see you, so I rushed over." When I looked in surprise toward the direction of the voice, I saw Nanami-san standing there together with Audiobook-san and Kamonai-san. "How long have you been there?" I asked, hesitating a bit. "Long enough to hear the part when you said you felt lonely," Nanami-san replied. "Geez, Yashin, I didn't know you wanted to see me that much. You're such a baby. Come here, let me spoil you." Nanami-san sat down next to me very intentionally and spread her arms wide, inviting me for a hug. She would probably have panicked and turned beet red if I'd actually hugged her right there and then, but she was most likely doing it because she knew I wouldn't be able to accept in a place like this. But support came from an unexpected source. Yeah, all of a sudden, in the middle of our meeting, she started saying how much she wanted to see you. That kinder forced us to call it a day, and we headed over here, Audiobook-san said. I mean, everyone already heard what they wanted to hear, so they probably got their money's worth of gossip right. After a while, it just became Nanami's little ooey-gooey solo show. It was totally sweet to watch, Kamonai-san added. Geez, you two didn't need to tell him that, Nanami-san exclaimed, protesting with her fists. I was afraid to ask what she'd said to all the girls present, so I decided to keep my mouth shut. "Thanks for making sure she got here safe, girls," I said. "No need," Otterfuchsen replied. "All right, you two. The third and fourth wheels are leaving. Enjoy your shopping honeymoon." "Bye-bye, guys," Kamonai-san added. "See you tomorrow. We're not newlyweds. We're just picking up groceries for dinner like normal," Nanarmi-san yelled. "Har har. See you both tomorrow," I said as Nanarmi-san and I waved her friends goodbye. Left to ourselves, Nanarmi-san and I soon fell silent. I offered her my hand, feeling happy to see her blushing face again. Nanami-san took it in silence, and we headed off toward the grocery store, holding hands like always. "Yeah, having her next to me just feels right somehow," I thought as we began chatting away about what to make for dinner. Feeling the warmth of her hand in mine, I told myself once more that for our anniversary I would tell Nanami-san how I felt no matter how things turned out. On our 1-month anniversary, I'm gonna tell her how I feel. I knew I'd decided that and I was making preparations for it, but as an entirely separate issue, I was faced with a much more pressing dilemma. "Oh, wow, this is bad," I muttered, slumping over my desk as I looked over my results from last week's math test. 36. My score was a dismal 36 out of 100. This was bad. It was just barely above 30, the failing grade. I was glad I hadn't failed, but this was by far the worst grade I'd ever received. Before now, I'd always gotten scores somewhere in the 50s and 60s, so to have my score fall so much hurt pretty bad. "How did you do on the test, Yashin?" Nanami-san asked, approaching my seat. Seeing me, though, she paused. "Wow, you seem really bummed. Was it that bad?" I handed her my test paper without saying anything. Sensing something was definitely up, she looked silently at the paper for a moment and then said, "Wow." She must have said it without meaning to, because a moment later she brought her hand to her mouth. I'd never heard Nanami-san sound so put off by something. I'd gotten to experience yet another first with her, but this one certainly didn't make me feel happy. There were so many different meanings packed into that single word. Her voice had the kind of ring to it that might have opened up a door to a whole new fetish for me, if only she'd accompanied it with a look of scorn. Fortunately, she had a tense smile on her face instead. "Well, this test was kind of hard. You know, I'm impressed you didn't fail," she said. She tried to console me by stroking my hair, but she remained unable to stop smiling. I obviously wasn't quite convinced, already knowing that Nanami-san had scored higher than I had. Actually, maybe I should start by addressing the fact that she was stroking my hair while we were both in the classroom. Was it just me, or were the people around us giving us strange warm looks? "What did you get, Nanami-san?" I asked. "Oh, this," she said, showing me her test paper. 87. She'd gotten 87. Her score was more than double my own. Despite her saying the test had been kind of hard, I couldn't help but wonder what her scores were usually like. I'd heard that her grades were good, but I hadn't been aware they were this good. "That's amazing, Nanami-san. I couldn't really study and stuff for this one, but I'll have to work harder next time." "Was it my fault?" she asked. "No, no, that's not it at all. It was just my lack of effort," I said to reassure her, even as I let out a large yawn. Although it was true that I'd been spending a lot of time with Nanami-san, if I'd actually tried, I would have been able to make time for studying after I'd gotten home. Instead, I'd spent that time working out, playing games, and reporting back to Baron-san and the others. I'd simply been slacking off, but this was bad. To have my grades drop so much now might get Nanami-san in trouble. I had to do something to make sure I set time aside for studying, but how was I supposed to do that while also preparing my gift for her? If push came to shove, I might need to suck it up and stay up a few nights. "Are you thinking about staying up at night to make time for studying?" Nanami-san asked, glaring at me and making me jump. With her eyes still narrowed, she brought her face extremely close to mine until our noses were almost touching. From there, she continued glaring at me as if to make a point. I couldn't bring myself to look her in the eyes, so I just ended up looking everywhere but at her face. This wasn't because she'd seen right through me. She was just so close, I didn't know what else to do. Confirming her suspicions based on my reaction, she sighed without moving away. I felt her breath on my face, which made my heart skip a beat. I knew she wasn't doing it intentionally, but that small act was nonetheless bad for my heart. "You're so easy to read, Yashin. You know you shouldn't stay up all night and overwork yourself." "Yeah, but I'm still young. It'll be fine even if I cut back on my sleep a bit. I'm worried about you, so no. Jeez." Nanami-san stepped away from me and put her hand on her forehead, exasperated. I really shouldn't worry her, so maybe staying up all night is a no-go. If that's the case, I guess I'll have to cut back on the time I spend playing my game. Given that a student's job is to study, I guess that's to be expected. I'll just have to explain things to Baron-san and the others. As I sat there considering my options, I noticed Nanami-san looking something up on her phone. Then, after nodding once, she brought her face close to mine again. "Hey, Yashin, do you want to study with me from now on? We've been talking in my room until now, but I could use that time to tutor you." Nanami-san's proposal seemed almost too good to be true. Come to think of it, all those times I'd been there, I'd been taking time away from Nanami-san's studying, hadn't I? And yet she'd managed to keep up her grades. Nanami-san really was impressive. "Well, that's great by me, but is that okay with you, Nanami-san?" "Of course, that's fine by me. They call it a study date, apparently. If we think of it as going on a date every day after school, doesn't it seem kinder nice? A study date doesn't. That sound kind of contradictory. Can studying and going on a date really balance each other out? That seems kind of difficult to do." I was impressed by the creativity of those who were able to turn anything into a date. I wouldn't have been able to come up with that no matter how hard I'd tried. "Wait, if that's the case, does that mean all our chats in your room count as dates too?" I asked. It was just an offhand comment, but it seemed I was right on the money. Nanami-san turned bright red and started slapping me on the back. Yeah, I guess saying it out loud was a little embarrassing. By this point, we'd gotten used to all the stares that seemed to say, "There they go again." I felt like everyone around us had become a little bit kinder toward us since the incident with the rumors, though I wasn't sure if that was actually the case or if I was just imagining it. "Then we'll start today," Nanami-san said, as she fiddled with her phone. Deciding that together was about the only thing that happened at school that day. All the rumors from the day before had died down somewhat. Of course, minor ones were still going around on some parts of campus, but no one came to confront us anymore. The school day eventually ended, and we proceeded with our usual routine shopping for groceries, making dinner, and having our meal together. Once we were all done, we moved to Nanami-san's room. Just as I was thinking that we would start studying, Nanami-san said, "Give me a few minutes, okay?" and walked out. I was left all alone in her room. We'd brought all our books and study materials. What else did she need to prepare? After I waited for quite some time, Genichiro-san came into the room first. "Is Genichiro-san going to study with us too?" I wondered. Probably not. He had brought with him a small, round table that he placed in the center of Nanami-san's room. Then he turned to me and said, "Good luck, Yashin-kun," before leaving the room. "Oh, I see. He brought a table for us to study at. How kind of him." Right after Genichiro-san left, Nanami-san re-entered the room, but when I saw her, I was left speechless. "Shall we get started then? Please take out your test from today, Yashin-kun," she said. Just like how she'd gone all out with her cooking lesson, she was going full-on teacher mode for our math class. Absolutely nothing she'd said had entered my brain. I found that, because of the shock, I was unable to properly process any incoming information. Nanami-san was wearing a white button-down shirt and a blue necktie, along with a tight black skirt. A pair of silver glasses that I'd never seen before framed her eyes, and her hair was up in a side ponytail. Why are you cosplaying all of a sudden? This is cosplay, right?" Nanami-san, why are you dressed like that?" I asked. "Like this. When I told my mom I was going to tutor you, she let me borrow them. What do you think? I could pass for a teacher, right? Do I look cute?" "Why, yeah, you look cute." I mean, she did look cute, but I felt like the outfit was a bit too stimulating. I'd never in my life seen such a tight skirt, and my heart was pounding from just how mature she looked. Nanami-san, however, sat down across from me and started staring seriously at my test paper. Seeing her seriousness, I felt ashamed for having such impure thoughts. At this moment, we weren't boyfriend and girlfriend. We were student and teacher. That was how seriously I had to take this situation. Seeing your answers, I feel like you're making a lot of careless errors. And I think you're also using the wrong formulas. You're making the same mistakes a lot. Are you the type to just memorize the problems and answers from the textbook? Oh, yeah. I often end up not knowing which formula I'm supposed to use or when to use it, so I just try to memorize everything and then figure out which one I'm supposed to put in. I see. In math, I think it's more important to understand the material than to memorize it. If you're going to memorize things, it's better to memorize patterns. Even if you memorize pairs of problems and answers, you're not really going to be able to apply them. That's not too different from subjects in the humanities. From there, she went through my test and gave me advice about the problems I'd gotten wrong. Even when she pointed things out to me, rather than telling me the answer, she explained to me why I'd gotten something wrong or which formula I should be using instead. She accompanied every point with a thorough explanation, even for parts that I didn't understand. She was very patient and went through the material thoroughly. She wasn't strict at all. In fact, her tone was very gentle. Once she explained things to me, I often felt embarrassed about the mistakes I'd made, but I also realized how considerate her method of teaching was. I feel kind of bad toward my teacher for saying this, but I felt I understood things 100 times better after Nanarmi-san had explained them to me. It's not that my teacher was bad. It had more to do with my attitude. Because Nanarmi-san and I were sitting across from each other, she had to stretch her body forward in order for her to show me things. At first I'd been listening intently, but at some point I realized something. The shirt and skirt that she was wearing, they belonged to Tomoko-san, but they didn't really seem to fit her. That is, every time she leaned forward, there was a little gap between her shirt and her body. She was probably wearing the tie in order to hide it, but throughout our session, the tie had loosened slightly. I quickly turned my gaze away in order not to look, but I couldn't really help catching a glimpse of something orange and somewhat gaudy in the corner of my eye. "What's wrong, Yashin?" Nanarmi-san asked. "Nanarmi-san, do you mind covering up your chest area a bit? I can see." Panicked, Nanarmi-san brought her hands to her chest and leaned back in her seat. She then looked at me, glaring a little, and muttered, "Did you see?" "Just a bit." That I didn't see anything terribly clearly. Orange with that single word, my whole body shuddered. It seemed Nanarmi-san was quaking too, perhaps from embarrassment. I was about to get down on my knees to apologize, but Nanarmi-san stood up instead. "Well, I guess if it's you, then I don't mind. But can you wait just a little bit? I'm gonna go change." With that, she left the room once again. Was it good that I told her, or should I have kept it to myself? No matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't seem to come up with the right answer. Regardless, I knew that I was one lucky guy, even if continuing to ogle felt wrong. That last part was why I'd ended up telling her. After a while, Nanarmi-san returned, having changed into gray loungewear. "We can concentrate now, she said. I nodded. "Honestly, just you being my teacher makes me nervous." "That loungewear is really cute, though." "Thanks, but come on. Let's focus on studying now, okay?" Blushing slightly, Nanarmi-san looked down at my math test again and resumed our lesson. Now that she talked me through it all, I felt like I had a much better grasp on the material covered. Unlike our usual chats, this tutoring session required a lot of physical and mental energy, but it too filled me with a comfortable sense of fatigue. Once we'd finished studying, Nanarmi-san's mother brought us cups of hot tea and small chocolate snacks. Nanarmi-san seemed to have asked her beforehand. I had a sip of the tea and ate my chocolate in one piece. I felt the warmth of the tea and the sweetness of the chocolate melting in my mouth travel together throughout my tired body. "I'll tutor you like this every day from now on. It'll be a good review for me, and your grades will go up too, right? I feel bad, but I'll definitely take you up on it. You're planning on going to college, right? Is there something you want to be in the future?" Nanarmi-san placed her cup of tea down and smiled at me gently. I actually want to be a teacher when I grow up. A teacher. Is that why you're so good at explaining things? Well, I admit I'm not entirely set on it. I'm sure you'd make a great teacher. With that, I pictured Nanami-san as a teacher, but in that same moment, a foreboding thought crossed my mind. If she were to become a middle school or high school teacher, she would definitely be popular. There would most definitely be male students who would have a crush on her, and they might even decide to hit on her. Or worse, her coworkers might even fall for her. That would be more likely than students trying to ask her out. I really wanted to support her in her dreams, but at the same time, I felt very worried. Yashin, why are you looking at me like that? Are you worrying about when I become a teacher? Well, I'm not worrying exactly, but you'd probably be really popular if you became a teacher, right? I knew I was being a worrywart, so I decided not to say anything more. There was no reason to feel anxious about the future, but my imagination was making me nervous. Nanami-san smiled happily at my comment. She came closer to me, taking the trouble to crawl under the table rather than go around it. As I wondered why she'd done that, she proceeded to rest her head in my lap. So this is what she wanted to do? Huh, perhaps she couldn't be bothered to stand up, looking up at me out of the corner of her eye. As I sat there both surprised and amused, Nanami-san raised her left hand. If you're so worried, then when I become a teacher, maybe I should just wear a ring here. Then everything will be fine, don't you think? Wear a ring? Like to ward off evil and stuff? I dunno if that stuff actually works, even if you wear it on your ring finger. Wait, your ring finger? Looking at where she was pointing with her right hand, I finally understood what she was trying to say. Nanami-san smiled a very satisfied smile. Then, growing embarrassed, she glowed bright red and turned away from me. I mean, you know, even if it's not for real, it might still be effective as long as I'm wearing one. I know it's not for a while, and no one knows what'll happen before then, but I just thought I'd mention it. Having given an explanation that sounded more like an excuse, Nanami-san fell silent. I didn't know what to say in response, so I, too, didn't say a word. Eventually, as if trying to squeeze out my voice, I opened my mouth and said, "Doesn't a ring feel like it's too loaded for a gift?" "Not at all. If I'm getting it from you, then anything will make me happy." "Oh, but it's not like I'm trying to ask you for one or anything like that. I'm happy as long as you're with me." Nanami-san's voice grew softer and softer. I was glad she would feel happy if I gave her something like that. If even a ring was okay, then a handmade necklace would be perfectly fine for our anniversary. "Let's do our best together from here on out," Nanami-san said to me softly. "Yeah, let's," was all I could say in response. Silence enveloped us once again as we both looked at each other and smiled. "Yeah, I'll do my best," I thought. "I'll do my best with Nanami-san and, of course, with my studies." Interlude, the rumors in my left hand. After Yashin left, I lay on my bed alone in my room. Earlier, I'd been using Yashin's lap as my pillow, but now I was using a normal one. I reached my left hand toward the ceiling and looked at my ring finger. There wasn't anything there, but for some reason I couldn't take my eyes off of it. While tutoring Yashin, I'd told him about my hopes for the future. I'd told him without thinking that having a ring there on my left ring finger would be nice. Geez, seriously, why did I say something like that? He totally didn't know how to respond. I must have really shaken him, because he'd asked me whether receiving a ring felt like a bit much. I was interested in jewelry and stuff, but I'd only meant the cheap kind that we could buy with our allowances. It was way too early in the game to be thinking about putting a ring on this finger. I mean, who knew how feelings would change with time? Not mine, mainly his. But I wonder how much he likes me, I mumbled to myself. I gently touched the tip of my finger to my forehead. It was the place where he was kissing me goodnight in the photo Ayumi had shown me. When I rubbed it, it tickled. I lifted my fingertip off of my forehead and ran it along my lips. If he'd kissed me on his own, not by accident, then it was okay for me to think that he liked me, right? I didn't know how boys felt about these things, but when I looked at that photo, my anxiety faded a little. Just a little. Come to think of it, I still had all sorts of questions about Sunday night. Why had I fallen asleep? Or more to the point, how had I ended up getting drunk? I mean, I knew that it was because I'd eaten too many whiskey bonbons, but what a total waste. I couldn't help but wonder whether Yashin would have done the exact same thing if I'd been awake and sober. Maybe we would have just said our goodnights without a kiss. If so, then even if the kiss had been by chance, maybe I'd made the right move. But I'm never gonna eat whiskey bonbons ever again, I said, clenching my fist. In fact, I didn't plan on consuming alcohol at all even after I turned 20. In any case, even though it was only the second day of the week, I felt like those 2 days had been pretty eventful. Even though Monday mornings were usually a downer, this past Monday I'd felt happy right from the start. Yashin had been with me when I woke up. We'd all eaten breakfast together, and then we'd walked to school together as a group. I hadn't felt 100% when I'd first woken up, but when I'd seen his face, any thought about that had been swept out the window. I'd arrived at school all excited that something good was going to happen, but boy, it was totally the opposite. I'd heard that, at the end of it all the ups and downs in life balance themselves out. Maybe this had been a small sample of that. I mean, who could have guessed that rumors like those would go around? There was no way Yashin would cheat on me, and him having a harem was even less likely. The rumors themselves fizzled out quickly, though, thanks to everyone's help. And while another rumor was now going around in their place, that one was less of an issue, I think. To tell the truth, I'd felt kind of shocked when I'd heard one of the rumors, not the one about the harem or the one about him cheating on me, but the one about me dumping Yashin because that rumor might turn out to be true, but the other way around. In a month, I was going to tell him I liked him for real this time. I was also going to apologize. Who knew how things could turn out as a result of that? The thought alone frightened me. And, to counter that anxiety, I'd started being way more touchy-feely with Yashin than usual. I kept hugging him and feeding him his bento and stuff. That was why, when I'd finished talking with the girls and gone to meet him, I'd been so happy to hear him say he'd felt lonely. When I'd met up with the other girls, they'd asked me all sorts of stuff about how things were progressing between me and Yashin. Their questions, though, had been so intense that I'd felt overwhelmed. They'd asked me stuff like whether we'd kissed and date, how far we'd gotten, and that sort of thing. Some of the girls with boyfriends had asked stuff so totally outrageous that they'd left me speechless. At first I'd just been answering their questions, but after a while I ended up as the one doing all the talking. I think the relief I'd felt from knowing the rumors had been taken care of had also had something to do with it. Now that I think about it, by the time I left, everyone was slumped over their desk. I wonder what happened to them. One of the things I'd learned from the incident with the rumors was that people loved talking about scandals. If Yashin and I were to do something strange, word would definitely get around fast. I'll just keep the fact that Yashin slept over at my place on Sunday night to myself. If a rumor about that started going around, I shuddered just thinking about it. Who knew what people would say? I couldn't even begin to guess how the story would be twisted. I had to be careful. Never mind me, I didn't want there to be problems for Yashin. I needed to refrain from doing anything careless. Oh, but I still wanted to spend time with him. That was why even today, after all the development of all those rumors, we'd been studying together in my room. No, I don't mean that in a weird way, but I guess borrowing those clothes from my mom just to get into the spirit of things might have been a mistake. He'd probably seen some things because the clothes hadn't fit me properly. Yashin was such an honest person for actually pointing that out to me. If he'd really wanted to, he could have just kept staring. I wonder if Yashin's already home by now, I thought. I should message him again after I take a bath and tell him I'm stoked for us to give it our all tomorrow. Truth be told, I was surprised that Yashin wasn't that great at studying. He was such a diligent guy that I'd assumed he was studious. You really can't judge a book by its cover, but that's not something I should be saying myself. Really, though, his gentlemanly personality saved me in so many ways. What would have happened if he had fallen asleep on Sunday and been lying there in front of me, completely vulnerable? Would I have made a move on Yashin? No way. I wouldn't. Really, I swear. Just who was I trying to convince? Regardless, just thinking about it made my cheeks burn. If he were asleep in front of me and we were completely alone, what would I do? Would something like that even happen? Realizing it was no use thinking about such things, I sat up on my bed. Yeah, I'll do my best starting tomorrow. I'll do my best with Yashin in both my studies and our relationship. Come to think of it, I told Yashin about my hopes for the future, but I wonder what Yashin's dreams are. Maybe I'll ask him next time I see him. Maybe, if possible, we could end up going to the same college. Yeah, that would make me really happy. Picturing the two of us attending college together, I headed off to the bath, feeling much lighter than usual. Chapter 2. Our little trip and my lie with such an intense for me incident having landed on us at the beginning of the week. I was nervous about what the rest of the week had in store, but it seemed there was no need for me to worry. At least in terms of school, time passed peacefully without any problems. I mean, me getting a crappy score on a test wasn't that big of a deal. That was why I was able to spend time with Nanarmi-sen very comfortably, peacefully, and happily. In the morning, we walked to school together. We ate together at lunch. After school, we went home, had dinner, and studied together. I was pretty much living the good life. I shouldn't take my situation for granted, though. Even if, or especially if, no problems arose, I should always keep in mind that every day was special. Nanami-san had asked me if I wanted to study together on the weekend too, but I'd told her I wanted to thank her for tutoring me and asked her out on a date instead. To be honest, asking her out on a date always made me nervous, but I think I managed it somehow. Nanami-san had happily agreed to the date, but she'd also told me we should study together once we got home. Am I really making her worry that much in terms of my grades? I wondered. I guess so, huh? Getting back on track, given that she'd at least agreed to go on a date with me, I'd begun to wonder where to take her on our next date. The zoo, perhaps. Maybe that was too cliché. I had to come up with a plan. I'd also been keeping up with my daily reports to Baron-san and my in-game teammates. Baron-san had told me I didn't need any more advice, but I still wanted to know what he and others thought. I especially wanted to hear what Peak-san had to say about my anniversary present idea, since she was a girl, and all. Moreover, Canyon, I'm thinking of telling her on our 1-month anniversary that I like her. I made my declaration to Baron-san and the others to prove my unwavering resolve. I felt embarrassed about sharing such a private decision, but he welcomed my sentiments warmly. Baron, so that's what you went with. Canyon, are you surprised? Baron, no, not at all. I'm pretty sure things are gonna turn out fine, so I'm not even worried. Canyon, and not so sure. I mean, it's my first time ever telling a girl that I like her. Yeah, that was the problem. I'd never confessed my feelings to anyone before. I'd never even written a love letter, though. Nowadays, I wasn't really sure if anyone had. That was why I was struggling to figure out what to say in order to tell her how I felt. Baron, do you need any advice on telling her how you feel? Baron-san, with his impeccable timing, had read my mind as usual, but as much as I appreciated his offer, I politely declined. Canyon, thanks, but I want to figure out how to say this on my own, no matter how much of a struggle that is. Baron, is that so? Gosh, watching a youngster mature is utterly mesmerizing. I'm all choked up, even though it's not even about me. You know, I think you've just earned yourself a certificate as official boyfriend material, not that I'm qualified to issue that certificate. That sure was an exaggeration, but even then, I felt happy being told I'd matured. It was hard for me to notice whether I was getting better at any of this. Baron, oh, just one thing, I'm really just talking to myself here, but if you try to be cool about it or come up with some elaborate way of saying things, there's a chance you'll slip and fall on your face. Canyon, Baron-san, could it be that you Baron? No comment. I'll just leave that tidbit as a random guy's sad tale of failure. I didn't press him about whose story that was. Hearing the answer might make me sad too. Whatever the case, I wouldn't let his warning go unheeded. I guess I'd ended up getting advice after all. Just then, a message popped up from Peach-san, who seemed to have been watching our back and forth. Peach, may I add something? Thinking that she didn't need to be so considerate, I responded that she definitely could. Another message from her appeared immediately. Peach, I think telling her you like her would be really lovely, but even if you don't tell her, isn't just celebrating your 1 month together enough? Canyon, I guess me telling her is like a way of setting things right, so to speak. Peach, really? Well, if that's what you've decided, then I think that's the way to go. Canyon, thanks, Peach-san. Actually, there's something I want to ask you. That was when I brought up the gift I was planning to give Nanarmi-san for our 1-month anniversary. the necklace that would accompany my confession. It seemed like a bit much, which was why I wanted to get a girl's opinion. Baron-san seemed thrilled that I was asking a girl for advice, which seemed like a weird thing to get excited over. Just what had he thought of me until now? Peach-san must have been thinking hard, because her response came a short while later. Peach, I do think it's a nice idea. I might feel a bit intimidated if someone gave me something super expensive, but something handmade by my boyfriend would be nice. It's sweet, really. I'd love to receive something like that. Baron, yeah, I feel the same way. Something handmade, huh? I haven't given my wife anything like that in a while. Maybe I should follow your example and try it out. Canon, that's a relief. I was worried it might seem like a bit much. Peach, whether it is or not is probably up to your girlfriend. No. Has she ever said anything about gifting jewelry? We had that chat about rings the other day. I ended up typing out that exchange too, though I didn't share the whole story. Baron, wait, what? Tell us more. Peach, same. Come to think of it, your update about the after-date sleepover was also missing a few details. Did you two kiss? Spill it. Shoot, I kicked the hornet's nest. I'd chatted with Baron-san and the others the night of our date, but I'd purposefully left out a few of the juicier details. I seemed to have ended up stumbling into topics I should have avoided. For now, I maintained the vagueness of my story by saying that the details would remain as a memory between me and Nanami-san. I was way too embarrassed to share whether we'd actually kissed or how. At least that was my reasoning, but Baron, I see, so you did do something memorable. Peach, high schoolers really are something else in the end. My vagueness only made them speculate more. Damn, I know I'd been put on the spot, but that was a careless move on my part. With that, I somewhat forced our conversation to a close and left the game. The hiccup had made me panic somewhat, but I'd gotten the green light from my gift. It sure was a relief. In terms of the design, Baron-san had cautioned me that I should come up with something that suited the recipient, rather than make something too masculine. He'd said that while recounting his own tale of failure, since he was going to give his wife a handmade gift for the first time in a long while, but I was pretty sure that tale was also his own way of giving me advice. I really couldn't thank him enough. Now that I'd gotten advice from everyone and was about to head into the final week of the dare, I really had to pull myself together. I have to do everything in my power, I told myself. I'd never attempted to make a piece of jewelry before, but that in and of itself was fun. When I thought about the possibility of seeing Nanami-san happy, I felt like I could do anything. After that, the week continued with nothing unexpected happening. The days flew by as normal. The problem arose once we hit the weekend. Actually, it wasn't a problem per se, but it was unexpected. The incident was brought on by my mother. Nanami-san Yashin, we are going to the hot springs. The one who'd greeted us when we had entered the Barito house was my mother. As soon as she'd opened her mouth, an incomprehensible phrase had flown out. Mel, wait, why are you even here? I wondered. Before we could even let anyone know we'd arrived back home, both Nanami-san and I had to blink a few times in confusion. Seeing my mom, her posture straight and her demeanor dignified as usual, we couldn't quite process the incoming information. When my mom saw us like that, she brought her hand up to her mouth, making out that she was thinking. My mistake. I was so caught up in the moment, I forgot to welcome you back home. That was very rude of me. Welcome home, you too. Thanks, Mom, I said. It's good to see you, Shinobu-san, Nanami-san added. My mom greeted us in a calm voice, the corners of her mouth raised ever so slightly to form a soft smile. I hope you both had a nice day at school. Mom, you seem weirdly excited, I said. This is her excited. Nanami-san looked back and forth between me and my mom, surprised. It was true that for people who didn't know my mom, she was speaking so softly that no one would ever guess she was excited, but I could tell from her body language that she was worked up over something. This was my mom's habit whenever she wasn't her calm, normal self. Now, if she were to start singing some weird, nonsensical song, that would mean that her level of tension had completely maxed out. No, it was no use overthinking my mom's excitement. Why was she here in the first place? Wasn't it tomorrow that she was supposed to be back for a break from her business trip? Welcome home, you two. Were you surprised? Tomoko-san asked, poking her head out from behind my mum. She had her hands on my mum's shoulders and seemed to have been hiding on purpose. Perplexed by her smiling face as always, I had no clue what Nanami-sen's mother was thinking. I was surprised. I didn't know Mom was going to be here, I said. Tomoko-sen laughed. It was actually my idea. Looks like we got you. Good work, Tomoko-sen. The two mothers smiled and high-fived each other as though they'd been friends for years. When did these two get so close? I wondered. It's so nice to see you again. I'm sorry I couldn't say hello last week. Nanami-sen, who'd looked nervous just a moment ago, jumped and offered Mom a bow. Oh, you don't have to do that, Nanami-san. My mom is just having her fun. My mom shifted her gaze from Tomoko-san and looked into Nanami-san's eyes. Don't you worry, Nanami-san. Thank you for always taking care of our son. Tell me, did you enjoy your date last week? Yep, we had so much fun, Nanami-san replied. I'm glad to hear it. Yashin gets so embarrassed that he won't share any of the details. Please do tell me more about it later. Letly. Oh geez. Give me a break, I mean. Come on, what kind of high schooler tells his parents about what happens on his dates? That goes for you too, Nanami-san. Don't go getting all excited, and please keep stories about our dates to yourself. I thought for a moment. Could it be that my mom came back early just to ask about that? I wondered. No, wait, what did she say earlier? She said hot springs, didn't she? Before I could continue my train of thought, Tomoko-san clapped her hands. Anyway, come on in, you guys. Let's sit down and chat. Shinobu-san brought us a little gift, so once you're both changed, we can all have some tea. She was right, it was a little odd continuing this conversation while all of us stood inside the front door. Nanami-san and I exchanged glances as we were ushered inside. Despite the shock we'd just received, she seemed to be having fun nonetheless. Please don't tell me she was looking forward to telling my mom about our date. The thought made me a bit nervous, but for now I set it aside. Nanami-san and I each got changed, and then we reconvened in the living room. There was already some tea waiting on the table when we got there. Once we'd sat down, I sipped some of the hot liquid to calm myself down, which was when my mother dropped a bombshell on me. Oh, by the way, Yashin, did you enjoy your sleepover on Sunday? I nearly spit out my tea at my mom's question. I hadn't realized people actually did that when they were shocked. It was dangerous, really. I mean, her question had come so suddenly that even if I hadn't spit out my tea, I'd still managed to let some of it go down the wrong pipe. As I sat there hacking up alone, Nanami-san rubbed my back slowly and asked, Yashin, are you okay? Still unable to speak. I flashed Nanami-san a thumbs up as I continued coughing. Even so, she continued gently rubbing my back until my cough subsided. Once I'd calmed down, my mom opened her mouth again. Did you enjoy your sleepover? She said. You don't have to repeat yourself. Yes, I enjoyed it. What of it? I said to my mother, who was asking me the same thing all over again, recognizing just how childish I was being. I glanced at Nanami-san next to me, but she seemed to be enjoying the scene. It's so refreshing to see you with a different tone and attitude, she said. She really was enjoying herself. I couldn't explain it, but having my behavior pointed out to me was embarrassing. Putting up a front with Mom also seemed kind of weird, though. I just had no idea my son would do such a thing to a young lady. He hadn't even married yet. I thought that I should perhaps give him a good scolding. I nearly spat out my tea again. A good all-scolding one that was completely deserved. I couldn't talk back if that was the route she was going to take. It's too late to do anything about it now, I thought. But if my mom knew, then Tomoko-san must have told her. When I stole a glance at Nanami-san's mother, she was beaming broadly and quickly flashed me a thumbs up. She was totally enjoying herself. There was nothing I could say. Just for the record, does Nanami-san know about it? My mom asked. She'd chosen to phrase the question vaguely on purpose. Doing so might have been my mom's way of being considerate, but Nanami-san flushed red and nodded silently in response. I see, so you do know. I apologize for my son's actions. No, Nanami-san was looking down at her lap, wringing her hands together awkwardly. Then, though stammering, she declared to my mom I didn't dislike it. In fact, it made me happy. As I was sitting in the seat next to her, A torrent of sweat exploded out of me at once. Nanami-san covered her face with both her hands, too embarrassed to look up. Once my downpour of sweat had subsided, I glanced at Nanami-san and turned red myself. She and I both grew silent, and my mom sighed. I knew I should have called immediately to ask for all the details. I hate business trips so much. To think things have heated up so much while we were both gone. You youngsters really do progress quickly. What are you saying? I'd exclaimed. Mom was freaking me out. Even if she had asked, I wouldn't have told her. I also wanted to stop her from asking Nanami-san instead, but I didn't really stand a chance. Just as I started wondering for a second time why my mom was here in the first place, I recalled her statement from earlier. Hot Springs, didn't she say we were going? So therefore, what do you say? Mom asked. Shall we go to the hot springs? I had no idea what the therefore was about, but there she was repeating herself again. As both Nanami-san and I sat in silence with our heads tilted, Mom in a rare fashion seemed to panic a bit as a drop of nervous sweat trickled down her face. Don't tell me you dislike hot springs, Nanami-san. Yashin, you tend to like them, don't you? She asked. At my mom's sudden display of timidness, Nanami-san replied in the affirmative, as if trying to make her feel better. Oh, no, I do like hot springs, she said. As for me, though it might have been a bit mean of me, I went ahead and replied honestly. That was such a long time ago, though. I haven't been to one in a while, so I really can't say. I mean, I don't think I'd gone to a hot spring with my parents since I was in elementary school. Back during middle school, I'd been obsessed with games, and it went without saying that we hadn't taken such a trip after I'd started high school. My parents were as busy as most parents are, and I understood that taking trips wasn't all that easy for us. Plus, it wasn't like I really wanted to go on a trip. If you asked me if I liked hot springs, well, if we're just talking about a big bath, then isn't a public bathhouse pretty much the same thing? That's my general sentiment, though it might anger folks who really like bathing there. When she heard my response, though, my mom put on a serious expression. I mean, her expression was always serious, but I detected a kind of pressure in this one. As I sat there slightly intimidated by that pressure, my mom opened her mouth slowly and said, Yashin, until now you haven't really engaged that much with other people. That is, of course, your personal choice, and I have respected that until now. I have always left your decisions in life up to you. What are you saying all of a sudden? I asked, confused. My mother, however, simply straightened her posture and took a sip of her tea in silence. Letting her drink slide down her throat, she sighed softly and continued. But if you're going to be in a relationship with Nanami-san, if you're going to stay with her, then I believe there is a need for you to properly develop strong relationships with other people. And for that, you need to go to many different places and expand your horizons. Is that what the hot springs are all about? I asked dubiously. That's right. You go on this trip together and deepen your relationship. It should also broaden your perspective and contribute to your future growth, she said. What's your real intention? I asked finally. My mom fell silent and didn't answer. I felt like she was really forcing the logic here. I mean, no one needed to go to the hot springs to expand their horizons. As I sat there looking at my mom for a minute, I noticed her slowly running her finger along the temple of her glasses. The gesture was a subtle tell of hers. That meant her earlier statements were, in fact, excuses. Knowing that, I decided I should stick to my original plan of going on a regular date with Nanami-san, but as I started to explain as much to Mom, she made one final move to shake me. Let me rephrase that. Wouldn't you like to see Nanami-san fresh out of the bath, wearing a yukata? The moment I heard that, the image flashed through my mind. Fresh out of the bath, fresh out of the bath, you say? The camisole from the other evening had been really cute, but also so revealing that I hadn't known where to look. The yukata, however, was a traditional Japanese garment that had the ability to bring out the sensuality of its wearer without showing a great deal of skin. Anyone who'd seen an online game character wearing a yukata as part of their summer costume would immediately understand. Was she really saying Nanami-san would wear a yukata which would allow me to look at her all I wanted without worrying about where to rest my gaze? My resolve wavered. When I glanced over at Nanami-san, it seemed she'd glanced over at me too. and our eyes met. "What do you want to do, Nanami-san?" I asked her tentatively. We were talking about what to do for our date this weekend. Technically, going to the hot springs is a possibility, but the fact that it's with my parents is a bit. I think it's a great idea. I haven't been to the hot springs in a while, and I'd love to wear a yukata. You're gonna wear one too, right? You will, right? A wave of pressure swept over me from Nanami-san's direction. I might even venture to say that it was more than what I felt coming from my mum. I supposed I would wear one too. When I nodded wordlessly, I thought I saw Nanami-san's eyes twinkle a bit. Had I just imagined it? Yeah, as long as Nanami-san was okay with it, I had no objections either. However, I still wasn't convinced by the part about my parents being there with us. "There's no need to worry," my mom suddenly said, grinning as if she saw right through me. It was the first time I'd seen her wear such an expression, a look that screamed to the world that she was scheming something. "Naturally, once we're there, you two will have to be left to your own devices. Your father and I will be off on our own date. Your father and Sayer and I will also plan our own activities, so you don't need to worry about us either," Tomoko-san added. I didn't really need to hear that last bit about my parents' date. But seriously, weren't parents usually the ones to put a stop to plans like these? I could say the same about Tomoko-san the other day. Why were our parents always so encouraging? They kind of scared me. As I was sitting there, unnerved, Mom finally said something truthful that made the trip hard to refuse. "The real reason for all this is that you have been so taken care of by the Barato family, despite Nanami-san being your girlfriend. I felt so bad about not being able to show my appreciation that I wanted to plan this little trip. The Barato family really had gone above and beyond for me. If my parents were proposing that this trip was a way to say thank you to them for that, then I mean, they were saying that we were all going to go around separately once we were there. Plus, Nanami-san and I wouldn't be able to go away together if not for an opportunity like this." Yeah, I decided to accept the proposal. "I get it," I said. "I'll take you up on the offer. Is that okay with you, Nanami-san?" "Yep. A trip with you's gonna be so much fun. Thank you for this, Shinobu-san." I was glad Nanami-san was happy. Indeed, I'd never thought we'd get to go on a trip like this. The more I thought about it, the better the idea seemed. Trying to go on an overnight trip as high schoolers usually wasn't possible unless the parents were involved. "I'm so glad all my hard work didn't go to waste," Mom said. "When I heard about the sleepover you two had, I wanted to plan something too." Tomoko-san nodded. "I'm happy for you, Shinobu-san. You seemed really bummed out about missing out on all the action." "Thanks. It's still true that this is our thanks to you and your family. Let's be sure to enjoy this trip." So that was her real intention. No, with my mom, both of those were probably both her real intentions. She wanted to bear witness to a sleepover event with me and Nanami-san, and she wanted to thank the Barreto family. She had probably been trying to fulfill both of those desires at the same time, and Tomoko-san had gone along with it. "Way to go, both of you. So where are we going? And what time are we leaving tomorrow?" I asked. Given that things had turned out this way, the only thing left to do was to enjoy the trip. Since I couldn't look up anything if I didn't know where we were going, I'd asked without really thinking. I soon realized, though, that I had underestimated them adults that were hell-bent on enjoying an event they'd planned, as well as the momentum and enthusiasm of two families that were all about having a good time. "We're leaving right now," Mom said. "Excuse me," I blurted. At that moment, as if too certain someone's had been waiting for my mother's words, I heard footsteps coming from outside the front door. Tomoko-san was smiling happily, and my mom was clenching her fist in triumph. "I'm home." "Oh," welcomed Shinobu-san. "Are you all set?" Genikaira-san asked. "Me too. Geez, I can finally blab. Seriously, I've wanted to talk about it for so long," Sei-chan said. Both of them must have already known about the trip. Of course, it seemed the only ones who hadn't known were me and Nanami-san. "All right, we're off. Let's do this." Everyone except for me and Nanami-san raised their fists and shouted in excitement. All the two of us could do was to watch them, completely dumbfounded. In the end, we couldn't depart right away, because Nanami-san and I still had to get ready. Our families had already packed the majority of our things for us, but there were smaller things that we had to pack ourselves, plus we'd both had to get ready emotionally. While I packed, I hurriedly gave a rundown of the situation to Berenson and Company. Canon, what should I do? We've been roped into a trip with both of our families. Baron, isn't that the kind of thing that's meant to happen post-wedding? Peach, I'm not really sure what's going on. All I can say is good luck. Yeah, I'd realized as much after I'd agreed to go on the trip. A trip with both families would be more appropriate after we got married. How did this happen? What's wrong? Yashin-kun, my thoughts had spilled right out of my mouth in the form of actual words. Genichiro-san, who was driving, had heard them perfectly clearly. Panicking a bit, I straightened my posture so that I was no longer looking down at my knees. Since Genichiro-san always drove me home, sitting in the passenger seat next to him was normally no big deal. Today, though, I felt more nervous than usual. No, it's nothing. Apologies for my mother, I said to him. Berenson had once told me that poorly executed surprise could actually backfire. I was learning that fact the hard way this time, all thanks to Mom. That was why I felt so nervous. Actually, though, maybe the surprise had only backfired on me and Nanami-san. After all, we were the only ones surprised. Genichiro-san didn't seem to mind at all. He just laughed in a somewhat exaggerated manner. No, it's been a while since we last went on a trip like this, so I'm looking forward to it. I can't thank your mother enough for planning this for us. Just out of curiosity, how long ago did she start planning it? I asked. I think she started the day after you stayed over. Shinobu-san insisted, saying she wanted to thank us for the time we were spending together. We told her she really didn't need to do that, but in the end she won us over. Had she really been planning this trip for that long? I was surprised to think just how much time had passed without me and Nanami-san hearing a peep about it. But even then, leaving today it's a pretty long drive, isn't it? I feel bad. Really. I used to drive a lot at night when I was younger. I enjoy it, plus the view can be pretty spectacular. Genichiro-san really did seem to be having fun driving. I didn't have much interest in it, so I couldn't say whether that enjoyment applied to many people. Even though I liked racing games, I knew nothing about proper driving. I guess that was because I'd never been on a trip like this before. I peered out from the passenger seat window, thinking about his comment. The sun hadn't completely set yet, so a faint orange light filled the sky. I wondered if the sky seemed even brighter than during the daytime because the sunlight was shining more directly into my eyes. My eyeballs would probably get fried if I continued staring, but it was probably my first time seeing the sunset like this. It made me feel a slight sense of nostalgia. I wished I could have shared the view with Nanami-san, but she wasn't in this car at the moment. This car was currently carrying me, Genichiro-san, and Mom, do you want a snack? Oh, do you want one too? Oni-chan? Oh, thanks, Saya-chan. Sayer, how about giving some to your good old dad? Don't worry, dear. I'll feed you. Here, Say-R. Saya-chan and Tomoko-san were sitting together in the back seat. I was currently riding with the Barato family, all by myself. It was no wonder I felt so nervous. How is Nanami-san doing in the other car, all alone with Mom? You should try going on a drive once you get your driver's license. Yashin-kun. It's fun. You'll get into it, Genichiro-san remarked. I don't know. Somehow it doesn't really click in my head. That's young people these days, for you growing less interested in cars. But aren't you looking forward to taking Nanami out for a drive? When I was young, I couldn't wait to take my wife places. Oh, sweetheart, Tomoko-san said from the back seat. She actually sounded a little bit embarrassed, which was rare. Taking Nanami-san out for a drive? Huh, I guess that does sound pretty good. It'll let us go to all sorts of new places together. That said, I still can't get my head around wanting to drive. I tried imagining it, Nanami-san sitting in the passenger seat of the car and me driving her around. We'd go to the beach or to the mountains. She would laugh happily beside me, eating a snack or feeding me too, but that was all in my head. In reality, I'd be too distracted to drive her safely, which was totally out of the question. Still, I felt like I understood why going for a drive was kind of cool. How many years is it before I can get a license? I wondered. Does our high school allow students to get them? Maybe I should look into it when I get home. Suddenly, I found myself looking forward to being able to drive. I keep saying driving isn't my kind of thing, but when Nanami-san was involved, I became all about the idea. I couldn't tell if that was good or bad. Are you sure you're doing all right, Yashin-kun? Genikaira-san asked. I'm sure you would have preferred to ride with Nanami. Oh, of course. I'm fine. I'll be with Nanami-san the whole time once we get there. Plus my mom said she wanted to chat with her, and all that. Nanami-san was riding in the car driven by my mother. Mom had said she wanted to talk with Nanami-san, but I couldn't help but wonder what she wanted to talk with her about. Whatever it was, I sure hoped Mom wasn't saying anything weird. I knew it was too late to change cars now, but perhaps letting Nanami-san travel with Mom hadn't been the best idea. What was my mom asking, and what was Nanami-san saying back? Just thinking about it unnerved me. Seeing me sigh, Genikaira-san laughed once more. The two women in the back seat were also laughing, but regardless of whether they knew what I was thinking or not, hearing them laugh made me start laughing too. Anyway, we can switch around when we stop somewhere to take a break. That way, Nanami can hop in here too. Until then, though, let's just have a little fun. Say, do you want to hear stories about Nanami from when she was a kid? Genikaira-san asked. I'd like that, but is it really okay for me to hear? Well, I guess I'll just share stuff she'll be okay with. I've got a ton of adorable stories about her. Oh, I have cute stories about one-chan too, Saya-chan Paita. Well then, shall we share a few juicy details? Tomoko-san added. Even though I felt kind of bad, the thought of hearing about all of Nanami-san's cute episodes made me excited nonetheless. Shinobu-san, what kind of a place will we be staying at? It's a place with a really nice view from the hot springs. Especially at night, the scenery when you're taking a bath is something else. I think you'll like it. I'm looking forward to it. Have you been there before? I have. My husband and I have a lot of memories there, so I'm glad I got to invite everyone to go with us this time. At that moment, for various reasons, I was by myself with Shinobu-san. I had thought I might get nervous being alone with Yashin's mother, but that wasn't the case at all. She was really easy to talk to. When I met her for the first time, I'd been so stunned that I'd said all sorts of weird things. When I thought back to that time, I felt like I could have acted a little differently. I glanced over at Shinobu-san as she drove. Her serious gaze reminded me of Yashin. His mom was the kind of woman you could call cool or even handsome. Yashin had said that his personality was a lot like his mother's, but I thought his eyes looked a lot like hers too. Just so you know, they also have a reservable family bath, so if you wanted to, you could take a bath together, Shinobu-san said. We can't do that, I'd exclaimed. I'd been so shocked by Shinobu-san's suggestion that I'd ended up responding like I would to my friends. I quickly covered my mouth, but Shinobu-san laughed, enjoying my response. Even the way she suddenly said things to give me heart attacks was very much like Yashin. Actually, no, it was Yashin that was like his mother. But even Yashin wouldn't say something like this, would he? I was starting to get confused. Still, taking a bath with Yashin would be, wait, a bath? Are two high schoolers allowed to be together in the family bath? No, that can't possibly be allowed, right? Don't parents usually stop their kids from doing things like that? I'm just teasing. It's still a little early for two high schoolers to be taking a bath together. Geez. Shinobu-sen raised the corners of her mouth and laughed even more as she watched me turn beet red. I knew she was teasing me, but it was kind of unfair. How could she be cool but really cute like this as well? Wait, didn't she just say it's still a little early? Does that mean it'll be possible in the future? Like when? I started imagining taking a bath with Yashin and promptly made myself all flustered. Shinobu-san kept a slight smile on her face. It seemed I wasn't going to get to hear what she was thinking. I had to press my hands to my cheeks to calm down. I could feel the heat of my face on my palms. I must be super red right now. I'm sorry, Nanami-san. Shinobu-san's voice was suddenly much gentler than before. Surprised by the unexpected apology, I tilted my head, my hands still pressed to my cheeks. Is she apologizing for her joke from a moment ago? I wondered, but that wasn't the reason at all. I'm sure you would have preferred to ride with Yashin, but I really wanted the opportunity to speak with you. It's totally fine. I'll get to spend time with him the whole time we're there, and I could even talk with him on the phone if I wanted to. That's right. Shinobu-san asked me to ride in her car because she wanted to talk with me, but what was it she wanted to talk about? I'd been thinking that I wanted to get to know Yashin's mother better, so her invitation to chat in her car had been perfect. Shinobu-san seemed cool at a glance, but I knew she was also really sweet. Maybe that's not the kind of thing I should be saying about my boyfriend's mother, though. Shinobu-san really was really different from my own mom. That was probably why I never expected the two of them to get along so much. Also, I'm sorry about what my son did. I can't believe he kissed a sleeping girl. It was taking advantage of someone's vulnerability. I wondered why she thought she still needed to apologize. I'd already told her I didn't mind the kiss at all and that it had actually made me happy. Perhaps as his mother, she felt like she should apologize to me. But I mean, really, he should have kissed you while you were awake, not while you were sleeping. That son of mine's such a late bloomer. Is that what you wanted to say? Her apology had meant something totally different from what I'd imagined. Maybe that was because I'd told her I didn't dislike it. Still, her comment made me laugh. Shinobu-san laughed along with me, then she paused for a moment, swapping to a more serious tone. How is your relationship with Yashin going? Anyway, is he being kind to you? I never thought he'd get a girlfriend, so I was caught off guard. Please excuse my behavior when we first met. She spoke in a kind voice, a voice different from her earlier cool tone. I could tell she was concerned about Yashin and me, which really warmed my heart. Not at all. I must have seemed so rude then too mid-sentence, though I suddenly remembered. The time Shinobu-san and I had first met, Yashin had kissed me on the cheek. Has Shinobu-san forgotten about that? I rubbed the spot where his lips had touched my cheek. At that moment, the traffic light turned red and the car came to a stop. Shinobu-san glanced at me without turning her head. Oh, come to think of it, he did kiss you while you were awake. Just on the cheek, though. I really was confused back then. She'd remembered. No, it wasn't a bad thing, but back then I'd been totally distracted by the fact that she thought I was a rental girlfriend. Now that I actually stopped to think about it, I became super embarrassed. Until Yashin started elementary school, he used to bring his friends to our house, Shinobu-san said suddenly. He got along with both boys and girls, and he always used to prefer playing outside over playing video games. Really, rather than delving into the details of the kiss and our first meeting, Shinobu-san had begun talking about Yashin when he was a kid. It was a story I probably wouldn't be able to hear from him. My question of whether it was okay for me to hear the story and my desire to hear it were competing with each other inside of me, yet I grew silent, unable to interrupt Shinobu-san as she spoke. The light turned green, and the car started moving again. My husband and I were both working, so he must have been lonely, but he told us he was fine because he was playing with his friends. He even smiled while he said that. Maybe it was rude of me to think this, but that wasn't the Yashin I could have pictured, given the way he'd been just a few weeks ago. I mean, he'd always been quiet, and he never participated in fun activities in class. He'd always been by himself, a classmate I'd never spoken to. I was only able to describe that version of Yashin as a thing of the past because we were dating now. Had we not started dating, I had a feeling that I would have never paid any attention to him. The thought alone frightened me. He was so different from how he is now, wasn't he? Shinobu-san said, smiling forlornly. I couldn't find the words to respond. I couldn't even nod or shake my head. All I could do was to stay silent and listen to her story. Shinobu-san continued her story. I felt like the car sped up slightly, but I wasn't looking out the window, so I couldn't know for sure. Looking at Shinobu-san's expression, though, that was the feeling that I got. Then, one day, he just stopped playing with his friends all of a sudden. When we got home, he was always there by himself. He stopped playing outside, and he started playing alone in the house more and more. All of a sudden, did something happen? I asked. He never told us. We asked his teacher about it at school, but we were told that Yashin spoke with his friends like normal in class and that he was a very good kid. The story sure was strange. Even though nothing seemed to have changed, his actions were completely different from what they used to be. My imagination started running in unpleasant directions. Could he have been bullied? I asked. We suspected that, but even though we looked into it, we couldn't find anything. Even when we asked him, he said nothing had happened. I was relieved that he hadn't been bullied, but I still had questions. At the same time, I felt a tinge of sadness because I realized I actually didn't know anything about Yashin. I knew that what I was hearing about was a thing of the past, but I still felt that way. I wanted to know what had happened, but I didn't think he'd tell me something he hadn't even shared with his parents. Even so, if he had been hurt in any way, I wanted to help him heal. But one time, he had a huge fight with his father. Yashin told my husband that he was comfortable being alone and to just leave him be. Really, Yashin actually gets mad. I didn't expect that at all. I'm sure the spike in his mood was partially down to adolescent angst, but I actually felt kind of relieved that they had that fight. It's only normal to fight and to tell each other what we actually want to say. Shinobu-san smiled a bit sadly, thinking back on the past. She almost looked like she was about to cry, which made my heart begin to ache. She looked at me, and her sad smile softened. I'm sorry to tell you such a gloomy story. I wanted to tell you how much I appreciate you, but I did so in such a roundabout way. Appreciate me? But I haven't. I haven't done anything. It was true I hadn't been able to do anything for him. Even though I always felt like I wanted to do something for him, I always received more than double what I gave. But Shinobu-san, still facing forward, quietly shook her head. That's not the case at all. When I see Yashin with you, I feel like I'm seeing him as he used to be when he was so active and social all those years ago. My husband and I were both so happy, we thought we might cry. Yashin, as he used to be thinking about it, I could see that Yashin really was a proactive guy. He'd helped me, he'd taken me out on a date, and he'd even kissed me. We respected Yashin's wishes, but we weren't able to change our son. We're pathetic as parents, really. I wanted to tell her that that wasn't the case at all. I wanted to tell her that the fact that Yashin had grown into such a wonderful person was most definitely because of her and her husband. I knew it was a presumptuous opinion coming from a kid like me, but even still I wanted to tell her, but I couldn't. When I heard what Shinobu-san said next, I became speechless. That's why I wanted to thank you for choosing my son, Nanami-san. Because of you, Yashin was able to change. My son is so lucky to be in a relationship with you. When I heard that, my heart skipped a beat. I began to sweat. My entire body was drained of warmth. My fingertips were so cold that I felt like I'd thrust them into a bucket of ice. No, that's not it at all. I hadn't chosen Yashin. I'd only confessed to him because I'd been told to. It had been through no will of my own. Now I would probably confess to him with all my heart, but still I wasn't the one who'd chosen him. I wanted to tell her, but I couldn't. I just clasped my hands tightly in front of my chest. When she saw me, Shinobu-san tilted her head, confused. I breathed in and out very, very slowly. Nanami-san, are you all right? I'm sorry I brought up such a strange topic even though we're supposed to be on a happy trip. Shinobu-san was worried about me. When she expressed her concern, I felt even worse. I started thinking about the topic that I'd been consciously pushing out of my head lately. I'm sorry, I thought, apologizing in my mind. I'm fine. Since I started dating Yashin, I've changed too. I was able to change. That's why I should be the one to say thank you. I see. Then, my son certainly is very lucky. I hope you two can enjoy yourselves while we are on the trip. Thank you, I said. I'm sorry. I internally apologized not only to Shinobu-san but to Yashin's father, even though he wasn't there with us. When all is said and done, I'll apologize to you both. One more time. No matter what happens then, I'll be fine with it. So please, please, let us stay together this way for just a short while longer. Being selfish, I prayed with all my heart. From then on, as she drove, Shinobu-san told me all sorts of adorable stories about the younger Yashin. I felt myself loathing slowly dissipating as I listened to her, and wanted to kick myself for being so easy on myself, not wanting to rain on everyone else's parade, though I locked my feelings away where they couldn't come out. The journey there ended up being a lot shorter than I'd expected. Everything had been a blast, going to a completely unknown place to have dinner, the quick rest stops, etc. Going to a convenience store at night also felt strangely exciting. Was that because I was doing something different from usual, or because everyone else was there with me? We chatted excitedly as we bought snacks and drinks. Even though I usually hated going out, I was starting to think that traveling with other people wasn't so bad after all. I became concerned, though, when Nanami-san was looking a little down at the first rest stop. On the surface, she looked like her usual self, but something about her seemed off. When I'd asked her what she talked about with my mom, she told me they chatted about me when I was younger. Honestly, I wanted to ask them to give me a break. I couldn't say anything, though, because I'd been hearing all sorts of cute stories about Nanami-san's childhood from Jenikaira-san and the others. You guys were talking about that too, huh? Seems like it. So what did she tell you? I asked. We'd asked each other questions as if trying to check the damage done, but then we looked at each other and laughed, as if to change the subject. I really wanted to know what my mom had told her, but I was also too scared to ask. Contradictory feelings welled up in my heart, though I wasn't sure if that was what you'd call them. From that point on, Nanami-san and I stayed together the remainder of the way. Part of that was to make sure that Mom wasn't going to tell Nanami-san any more weird stuff. Even more, though, I was worried. Maybe it was just my imagination, but Nanami-san seemed kind of sad, given that this was supposed to be a fun trip. I wanted to make sure she was enjoying herself. Sitting next to her, I squeezed her hand in reassurance. She made fun of me a little, but I didn't let go. Perhaps thanks to that, by the time we arrived, I felt like she was back to her usual self. "Are you okay, Nanami-san?" "Yeah, I'm fine," she said. "Wow, we're finally here. I hadn't driven such a long distance in quite some time. We've come a long, long way together, or so they say," Jenikaira-san said as he got out of the car. "What's that, Jenikaira-san? Our young people wouldn't know that one, huh?" He stretched and looked up at the hotel. The building was quite large. I looked up at it alongside Jenikaira-san. "Hey, Yashin, doesn't this hotel look a little too nice?" Nanami-san asked. "Have you stayed here before?" "Nope. I'm pretty sure I've never stayed anywhere so nice." This hotel was way fancier than the hotel we'd stayed at during our graduation trip in middle school. The building itself seemed high class. Nanami-san and I each took a step backward, feeling like we didn't belong. "Do you think I'm okay like this?" "They won't have a dress code, right?" Nanami-san asked me nervously. "I'm just in my regular clothes too. I wonder if I'll be let in without my tie." Nanami-san was wearing a slightly fuzzy outfit that looked like loungewear, while I was wearing a regular t-shirt and jeans. We couldn't help feeling like our clothes didn't match such a fancy hotel. Although I'd gotten all flustered and started talking about neckties that must just be for expensive restaurants and those kinds of things. Hotels shouldn't have dress codes. For now, Nanami-san and I decided to walk into the hotel together. The front desk was surrounded by a calm atmosphere. Warm lighting illuminated our surroundings. When I looked around, I saw a familiar figure sitting on a couch nearby. He seemed to notice us too, as he got up and started walking over. "Hey, looks like you all made it. Holding hands, huh? I'm glad to see that you two are doing well." My dad, still in his suit, greeted us with a teasing remark. "Hey, Dad," I replied. Before, Nanami-san and I would have let go of each other's hands immediately, but now we stayed as we were. My dad looked at us, seeming pleased. "You're here early?" I said. "I thought you were gonna join us later. I'm working nearby." "Oh, I've already checked us in. Here's the key to the room," he said, handing me a card. "A key card, huh?" I'd heard loads about people who lost theirs and couldn't get back into their rooms. I should be careful. With the business out of the way, Dad smiled softly at Nanami-san. Nanami-san seemed to shake a little. She squeezed my hand tightly. "It's nice to see you again, Nanami-san. Thank you for taking care of Yashin. I hope we can all have fun together. Thank you for letting Yashin spend time with me. And thank you for inviting us to such a gorgeous place." Nanami-san let go of my hand and bowed to my dad, who laughed and told her not to think anything of it. Given that even I couldn't seem to calm down, Nanami-san must have been having a harder time. Even after she raised her head, She seemed sort of nervous. As my dad started making his way over to my mom and Jennikira-san and everyone, I realized that the key card was still in my hand. I couldn't help staring at it. "Well, that totally freaked me out," Nanami-san mumbled, sighing as she placed her hand on her chest. When I looked at her more closely, I saw she was blushing and even perspiring a bit on her cheeks. I didn't realize that she'd been that nervous. "Does my dad still make you nervous? You seemed fine with Mom." "Yeah, I mean, he's an adult man. Of course I'd be nervous. I guess you are uncomfortable around men. So even my dad counts, huh?" I thought she'd gotten more used to guys because of me, but maybe she still couldn't really be around people she didn't have much contact with. That was what I was thinking, anyway, but it seemed that wasn't the case. What she said next was fairly unexpected. "There is that, but you look kind of like your dad, you know. When I think that you're gonna look like that one day, my heart starts beating faster." Wow, that gave me mixed feelings. Do I really look like my dad? No, wait. Even more than that, the fact that her heart starts beating faster makes me feel even stranger. I looked over at my dad. He was talking to my mom and Nanami-san's family. He was even talking and laughing with Seitan. It was amazing. Really, he'd gotten to know them in no time. Unlike me, my dad was very social. I'd heard he was pretty close with people at his work too. Didn't he feel like things like that were a bother? I remembered having a huge fight with him over that when I was in middle school. The fight had completely been my fault. Even during that fight, though my dad had stayed so calm, it had almost been like he'd just been giving me advice. My dad and I only looked alike. Inside, we were completely different. Oh, yeah. I even remembered him asking if I wanted to go camping with him. I think in the end I'd told him no because it seemed like too much trouble. I felt like now, though, I would be able to tell him sincerely that I wanted to go with him. Perhaps that, too, was due to Nanami-san's influence. I glanced at Nanami-san, who was standing next to me. Feeling my gaze, she looked back at me and tilted her head. "I hope I can be as cool as my dad one day," I muttered. Nanami-san laughed at my comment. "You'll be fine. Of course you're going to be a cool adult. You're already cool," she said as she looked up at me from below. Not used to hearing that, I felt my face getting hot. Nanami-san watched me, seemingly enjoying the situation. I had to take my eyes off of her and instead look toward my dad. He seemed to notice me looking at him because he looked back. "It's getting too late to go out, but you should check out the view from the room. It's really impressive," he said. What he'd said was true. We couldn't stand around by the front desk forever. It was time we headed to our room and put our stuff down. Nanami-san and I took each other's hand again and started walking, but just then Dad started talking. "Oh, right. Don't do anything funny just because you two are alone in the room. Keep it to enjoying the scenery, okay?" "I know that already," I exclaimed, nearly tripping over my own feet. Everyone, including my dad, was watching and laughing, amused by my dad's comment. "Geez, I can't believe they're all laughing," I thought. Just then, though I saw that even Nanami-san was laughing next to me, she seemed to find my riled-up self amusing. What was so funny about it? I wondered. I held my head in my hand as she and I made our way to the room. Before we left, we'd asked Saya-chan if she wanted to come with us, but she'd flat out refused, saying, "Oh, why would I go with you guys to see the view? Is this some kind of torture?" I hadn't expected to have a trip to our room be likened to torture. It seemed Saya-chan was getting attached to my mom, though. The two of them were chatting excitedly. Given that Saya-chan had rejected us, Nanami-san and I decided to go to the room by ourselves. The room number was 1031, which seemed like a room on a floor high up. We got in the elevator and pressed the button to our floor. The elevator immediately started to climb as my body became enveloped in that floating feeling unique to elevators. I didn't know what it was, but my heart was beating faster even though all we were doing was heading up to the room. What was going on? Why was my heart pounding so hard? It seemed Nanami-san was feeling the same way. Since getting in the elevator, she'd grown completely silent. She was looking down at the floor, both cheeks pink. I tried to say something to her, but for some reason I couldn't speak. My mouth felt dry and my throat felt parched. I was making strange sounds as I breathed. The elevator ride felt so long that I thought we were going to be stuck inside. Eventually, the dinging sound indicated we'd reached the right floor. The moment we heard that sound, we'd both flinched. My heart ached. My body trembled. My palms were sweating. Was Nanarmi-san feeling okay? When I turned slightly to look at her, she was staring straight at the elevator door. Then the door slowly opened, letting the light pour out. When we stepped out, we felt the soft hallway carpet beneath our shoes. Neither one of us was able to move until the doors closed, and we heard the elevator leave our floor. "Essay, shall we?" I said. I struggled to form the words. My voice cracked. When I spoke, though Nanarmi-san nodded slowly, simply walking together felt like a difficult move to execute. Before I realized it, Nanarmi-san had linked her arm with mine. I felt like I could hear her heartbeat through the places our bodies touched. That was when I finally realized why all this was happening. We were nervous about the fact that we were going to a hotel room together, something that was inconceivable in our everyday lives. If we'd been going to any normal place, it would have been fine, but saying we were going to a hotel room, that was the problem, because it made me unconsciously aware of that. The uncalled for comment from my dad had brought it to my attention, and Nanami-san probably felt the same way. The closer we got to our room, the more slowly we walked. "Damn it, Dad. Why'd you have to go and say something so weird? And I gonna have to fight him again? Another fight, huh?" The respect and admiration I'd felt for him a moment ago had completely shot out the window. Step by step, we proceeded very slowly, as if we'd taken an unimaginably long journey. Nanami-san and I finally reached the door to our room. We gulped simultaneously. When I brought the key card slowly up to the lock, we heard a mechanical sound, followed by the sound of the door unlocking. "We are just entering our room. We have no intention of doing anything. We can't do anything. Then why are we so nervous? We can't even have a conversation with each other." We entered the room together. Since I didn't have much experience with other hotels, I didn't know whether the room was a normal one. There were 2 beds and a futon. The latter had already been prepared in the tatami area toward the back. That made 3 beds in total, which must have meant this was my family's room. Nanarmi-san and I saw the inside of the room and sighed out loud, almost simultaneously. There was something funny about our reaction. We both looked at each other and laughed. Looking around at the room seemed to finally unravel the tension. "This is a really pretty room. It feels so calm. The lights don't feel too bright either," Nanarmi-san said. "Nep, it looks like you can see the view from the windows back there. Wow, you can even see from here how stunning it is." We were finally relaxed enough to be able to talk like we usually did. The exchange wasn't a long one, but we were nervous. "Shall we go check out what we can see from the window?" I suggested. "Now, I wonder what the view's like." After setting our luggage down, Nanami-san and I approached the window together. It was in the tatami room, so we took our shoes off and walked in. We sat down by the window above the futon and looked outside. Well, before we realized it, the 2 of us had both let out a sound of awe. Lights the kind we'd only seen on television lit up everything as far as the eye could see, shining almost too brightly. Lights of all kinds leaped into our field of vision, light reflecting off of water and stationary ships, lights illuminating brick buildings, lights from cars passing by. We were both at a loss for words. Our eyes were glued to the view from our window. Because the room was fairly dim, the lights outside felt even brighter, more beautiful. They lit up even the inside of our room. Of course, even we were illuminated by them. I shifted my gaze to look at Nanami-san. Her happy expression was illuminated by the nightscape. She looked beautiful. When she saw me looking at her, she turned to me and smiled. I smiled back. Then her expression suddenly clouded. Or maybe it was more accurate to say that she looked panicked. Even as she continued looking out the window, she glanced behind herself from time to time. What was she looking at? When I turned around, I realized the futon was lying there. I quickly turned my gaze back to the window, but once I'd started thinking about it, I couldn't help looking back too. Nanami-san came gradually closer. She leaned her body against my shoulder and continued gazing out the window. Her weight felt comfortable against me. though I admit she felt really light. After a while, her eyes came to rest on me. Becoming less concerned with the view and more concerned with her, I started gazing back. There, we looked at each other and not at all at the view. It felt like the distance between us was drifting away. Wait, are we actually getting closer? Her eyes glistened and her cheeks flushed. We were so close, and yet I didn't feel an ounce of the nervousness I'd felt earlier. Just as I was feeling incredibly peaceful, we heard a loud noise coming from the entrance. Nanami-san and I leaped up in shock and turned toward the direction of the noise. We were immediately confronted with the sight of everyone hiding, looking at us. The loud noise seemed to have come from someone's phone. Seeing as my mom was looking at my dad resentfully, it must have been his that had made the sound. Still in shock, Nanami-san and I stared at the group, frozen extremely close to each other. When my mom noticed us looking at all of them, she cleared her throat as if to gather herself. Then, in her usual calm manner, she stated, "Do continue." As if we could. I screamed with all my might, covering Nanami-san's ears with both hands. I heard birds calling outside our window, birds that I didn't usually hear in my own neighborhood. Their calls sounded kind of like the cries of cats. Were they black-tailed gulls? I'd heard their calls sound like cats. Hearing the bird calls, I woke up. It seemed I'd fallen asleep. "Thork, all right, I'm awake," I mumbled, still lying on the bed. The bed itself was softer than my bed back home, and I'd been able to sleep more soundly than I'd expected. But what did I do last night exactly? In my still drowsy state, I vaguely recalled what had happened the night before. I'm pretty sure, oh, right. I was watching the night view with Nanami-san when I realized everyone else was in the room too. Seriously, what a bunch of snoops. There were actually 2 key cards. I'd assumed that there was only one. Thinking that no one else could enter the room, I'd unconsciously let my guard down and ended up having quite the moment with Nanami-san right next to the futon. We hadn't actually done anything, but still I'd learned that it was entirely possible to end up almost doing something even if that wasn't my intention. After that, there'd been no way Nanami-san and I could have continued, so we'd all ended up heading to the hot springs. Then I'd come back to the room and lain down on one of the beds. The exhaustion of being on the road had worn me out more than I'd realized. I'd only meant to lie down, but before I knew it, I'd ended up falling asleep. Now, where did I put my phone? Still half asleep, I stretched out my arm to feel for my phone without lifting my head. All of a sudden, my palm brushed up against a softness that differed from the softness of the bed. What's this? I reflexively moved my palm. And NGJHR? As I felt the soft and comfortable sensation on my palm, I heard a gentle, feminine voice. I wanted to keep touching that softness forever, but wait a minute. My eyes snapped open as the thought crossed my mind that perhaps this was the real-life version of a very common trope. With my mind now completely clear, I sat bolt upright on the bed. Nanami-san was sleeping next to me. When I very timidly glanced down at where my hand lay, fearing I'd crossed the line, I saw that I was indeed touching her, except I was touching her stomach. Phew, that scared me. I felt a rush of mixed feelings, including relief, but also disappointment that it wasn't another body part of hers. Actually, it was good that it wasn't something else. There was nothing funny about touching her while she was sleeping. But why is Nanami-san sleeping in the same bed as me? When I looked at my own position on the bed, I realized that I was sleeping sideways on the bed. Nanami-san, too, was sleeping in the same way. She was wearing the yukata that came with the hotel room, and it had come loose around her neck. The bed was fairly large, which was why we were able to sleep this way. The blanket, however, had slipped off of the both of us. NJHO, good morning, Yashin. I guess we both fell asleep, huh? Nanami-san raised her head slightly and glanced over at me. She still seemed sleepy, with her eyes only half open. When her gaze traveled down to her stomach, though, she froze in place. Her eyes were glued to my hand, which was still resting on her stomach. Shoot, I forgot to move my hand away. Good morning, Nanami-san, I mumbled. Nanami-san flew out of bed, sending my hand flying. I was a little sad that the warmth had left my palm, but this wasn't the time for mourning that. I mean, it was my own fault for touching her at all. Why are you touching my stomach? A girl's stomach is completely off limits. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was all looking for my phone, and then when I stretched out my hand, you just happened to be there. Gosh, it would have been better if you just touched my boobs. I can't believe you went for my belly. Wait, seriously, do girls really dislike having their stomachs touched so much that they'd rather guys touch their chests? I mean, I'm pretty sure girls don't usually like either, but this was too much information too early in the morning. I couldn't process it all. I apologized to Nanami-san once again, but she didn't respond. Instead, she muttered something softly as I continued to panic. Sorry, what was that? I asked. How was it? She said a little louder. How was what? Is she asking for my opinion? At first, I didn't know how to respond. If I lied to her, I felt like she might end up sulking. It was nice and soft. No, why, you idiot. I messed up. That was totally the wrong response. Nanami-san had turned completely red and was now hitting me with a pillow. I chose not to resist and simply accepted her attacks. I'm sorry, but look, since you touched my stomach before, let's just call it even. Seriously, I've gotten kind of fat, so I didn't want you to touch me there. I so didn't want you to. The poofy blows continued coming, though they were quite weak. Obviously, they didn't hurt at all. In fact, I kind of liked the playfulness of it all. That she'd gotten fat? I didn't think that at all. In fact, Nanami-san seemed skinny to me. When I tried to console her, she tossed the pillow aside. Then, all of a sudden, she said, "All right, let me touch yours now." Why would you want to do that? You touched it the other day, remember? I'm afraid I don't, she replied. Nanami-san had now abandoned the pillow. As she began crawling toward me, both of her hands were moving as though they had minds of their own. To be honest, even if Nanami-san did manage to tackle me, I would most definitely be able to push her off of me. As a guy, I had more strength than she did. Mysteriously enough, though, I didn't feel a smidge of desire to actually do it. Well, maybe that wasn't so mysterious. As Nanami-san and I kept messing around, we suddenly heard voices behind us. You guys are being too loud. Are you awake? That's right. There are 2 beds in this room. But didn't I hear 2 voices just now? When I turned my head to look toward the other bed, I saw my mom and Saya-chan sleeping together. Nanami-san, too, saw the 2 of them and froze. Wait, how did that happen? Seriously, why do you have to be so lovey-dovey so early in the morning? Are you both in heat or something? Saya-chan asked, yawning. My mom also yawned and looked at each of us in turn. Well then, if everyone's awake, how about we go get some breakfast? The buffet here is to die for. As the 2 women got up, Nanami-san and I could only watch them, dumbfounded. It was, after all, her sister and my mother. They both thrust their fists out at me in response to a question I hadn't even articulated. We hit it off, Mom said. I was chatting with Shinobu-san the whole time yesterday, Saya-chan added. It wasn't much of an answer, but I couldn't bring myself to probe further. I was too scared to ask why my girlfriend's little sister and my own mom were sleeping together. We were sharing a bed because you don't have to explain, I shouted, interrupting Mom and sliding off the bed. Although the curtains were still closed, light was leaking through them already. The brightness was a pretty good sign that we'd get great weather today as well. Yeah, it's time for a change of pace. That was when I saw my dad sleeping on the futon at the back of the room. Shoot. Is this because we hogged the bed? I feel really bad. Don't worry yourself, Mom said. Your father was so excited about there being a futon set up in the tatami room that he insisted he sleep there. Oh, is that so? Wait, how do you know everything I'm thinking? Compared to the chaos around me, though, that felt like a trivial matter. After the turbulent breakfast that followed, Nanami-san and I finally found ourselves alone. Although I'd felt exhausted from the moment I'd woken up, I now felt completely re-energized. That was pretty convenient, to say the least. As for the other members of our party, Tomoko-san and Genichiro-san had gone off together, while my parents and Saya-chan had taken off as a group of 3. They all seemed to have places they wanted to visit. Saya-chan had become quite attached to my mom, whereas my mom was excited to have suddenly acquired the daughter she'd never had. She was also excited about the fact that Nanami-san was becoming somewhat jealous of Saya-chan, but that's a story for another day. Before the trip, my mom had been saying she'd go on a date with my dad, but she'd ultimately decided that she could do that any other day during their business trip. With that in mind, she'd decided to take advantage of the time she would get to spend with Saya-chan during this trip. Saya-chan herself seemed to want to give her parents an opportunity to spend some time by themselves. In other words, my mom's and Saya-chan's motives coincided with each other. But were my parents really meeting up with each other outside of work too? I had no idea. As I sat there dumbfounded by the discovery, my dad started to speak. "We'd invite you to come along more, but every time we've tried, you said it was too much of a hassle." That's right. It was too much of a hassle even when they offered to pick me up. I'd always declined their invitations, saying I wanted to complete the events in my game. I suppose humans are quick to forget inconvenient things. Well, never mind. I should enjoy my time together with Nanami-san. "So we're by ourselves." "Huh," I said. "We aren't we?" Nanami-san whispered, as if trying to take it all in. We'd come to a little bay area near the hotel. Nanami-san had her hair in one long braid which she draped over her shoulder, perhaps because we were by the sea. She was wearing a light shirt, a miniskirt, and a small purse and outfit that made it easier for her to walk around. I was wearing a t-shirt and a pair of chinos, casual, everyday wear. I know it sounds odd coming from me, someone who has zero interest in fashion, but I felt like we were dressed a little too plainly for a date. There was actually a reason for the way we were dressed. Yesterday, while we were riding in the car together, Nanami-san and I had discovered an interesting place. We were on our way there now. "This is pretty exciting, huh?" she said. "I know it's a little late to ask, but do I really need to be doing this too?" "Yes, you said you'd do it with me." "Yes, I most certainly did." Repeating this short exchange, we walked toward our destination, not in a rush, just in a very relaxed manner. The weather was nice, and it felt good just to walk together. Really, though, I'd only said yes yesterday because I'd gotten carried away. To be real about it, I felt like this was something more up Nanami-san's alley, not mine. You might be wondering what I'm talking about. That would be our "we're here." It was closer than we thought. "Wow, pretty," Nanami-san exclaimed. Before us stood a brick building that had a very retro vibe to it. This neighborhood had loads of brick buildings, but this one had a different feel. Nanami-san's eyes sparkled with expectation from just looking at the building. To be precise, her expectations were about what was inside the building. We walked inside and headed to the second floor. As we made our way up the stairs, an impressive collection of brightly colored clothes leaped out at us. There were so many different costumes. We were in a clothing rental store. This store in particular rented out not only normal clothes, but kimono as well as Western dresses. They even had hakama from the Taisho romance era. They carried costumes for both men and women, and you could even rent swords with the shinsengumi costumes. Looking around the store, I saw a few other customers who had already changed into their costumes. They all seemed to be enjoying the experience. I assumed that there would only be women here, but I was surprised to see several male customers as well. "You'd better look forward to my grand transformation, Yashin." "I certainly will. Make sure you actually choose something too, okay?" After reminding me of my assignment, Nanami-san skipped away to choose her costume. We'd already decided to surprise each other by choosing our costumes separately. What should I choose? I should go for something that isn't embarrassing for her to stand next to, right? A shinsengumi outfit would be good if she were into that, but maybe that isn't the ideal pick for a date. I kind of wanted to try the sword out for myself, but I was probably better off restraining myself. After all, today was all about Nanami-san. I chose a safe, light gray kimono. Nanami-san had already had her heart set on a hakama, so I hoped I wouldn't stand out too much next to her. One of the store associates dressed me in no time, and when I was finished, Nanami-san happily ran toward me, Nanami-san wearing a hakama. She stopped in front of me and opened her mouth. "Wow, Yashin, you look so good in a kimono. You're so handsome." Dang it. I wanted to be the one to give a compliment first. "You look great too, Nanami-san." The reason I couldn't was because Nanami-san had looked so beautiful as she'd run toward me that I'd been left totally speechless. I wished I could get used to that feeling, but I didn't think I ever would. I took a moment to study Nanami-san more closely. She was wearing a navy blue hakama patterned with pale pink flowers. Her Furisota type of kimono for young, unmarried women was bright green, also with a floral design. Are those plum blossoms, perhaps? Just like when we'd arrived here. She had her hair in a braid that cascaded down over one shoulder. "You look great, too, Nanami-san," I finally managed to say. She responded to my comment by smiling one of her flower-like smiles. She then lifted both of her hands and twirled happily. Seeing her cute gestures and her braid sway along with her movement, I couldn't help smiling myself. I wonder if she chose to braid her hair because of the outfit. Her flower-shaped hair ornament looks perfect on her. "I also have this," she said. I realized then that Nanami-san was holding something in her hand. It was a pair of glasses. Did she have them in her purse all along? The glasses had such thin silver frames on them that for a moment I thought they didn't have any frames at all. They looked similar to the pair she'd worn while tutoring me, but this time the lenses were circular. It was the first time I'd seen these glasses, which made me wonder how many pairs Nanami-san owned. She put the glasses on slowly and then turned to me with her head tilted. "What do you think? You look perfect." She really did look perfect. I honestly didn't think I had a thing for glasses, but these were very, very good indeed. I never knew that glasses and kimono made such a great pairing. I resolved to have her let me take a picture of her later. For a while she stood there twirling, showing me all 360 degrees of her outfit. Nanami-san looked so beautiful, and it seemed even people around us were watching her. When I extended my hand toward her cautiously, she stopped and took my hand, smiling. Perhaps because of our outfits, I felt nervous, as though I were serving as an escort for a young lady from a wealthy family. That was how beautiful she looked. It seemed I wasn't the only one who thought that. When I was walking through the town with her a short while later, I noticed people doing double takes. Men, especially, seemed to be turning around to look at her. Yup, they were definitely looking at Nanami-san. I even saw a guy walking with his girlfriend turn around to stare. His girlfriend stopped to yell at him. Seeing that, I told myself to be careful not to look at other girls while I was with Nanami-san, but it wasn't like I even had to. Seeing her talking so happily as she trotted along next to me, I knew that there was no way I would look at anyone else. In fact, I could swear on my life that that would never happen. We were walking together hand in hand. That alone made the view and the world appear magnificent to me. As we proceeded, though, I heard voices coming from around us. They were both complimenting Nanami-san and questioning me. The questions were terribly blatant, of course, but people definitely saw Nanami-san and then looked at me and said, "Ha," or muttered something along those lines. I'd seen scenes like that in manga before, but I never knew they actually happened, not that it was entirely surprising. It was hard to explain, though. Typically, my head would be filled with negative and self-deprecating thoughts, or I would think that Nanami-san and I didn't match, or I would question whether I was good enough for her. This time, however, no such thought entered my mind. In fact, I was happy about all the praise that people were directing toward Nanami-san. I had to hold my head high and tell myself that I, the guide who had the privilege of standing next to her, couldn't do anything to embarrass us. Don't show your pathetic side. Stand tall, I thought. Even though it was just my imagination, I felt like I could do anything. "What's on your mind, Yashin?" "HM. Oh, I was just thinking how happy I am to get to walk with you and enjoy the view." "RAC. I thought you were just taken with how cute I looked." "You thought the view was more beautiful?" "Huh? What are you talking about?" "Of course you're beautiful, Nanami-san. Everyone around us is looking at you." My comment took Nanami-san by surprise. She slapped me on the back several times, her face glowing red. It actually kind of hurt. If she was going to turn so red, why had she tried teasing me in the first place? I guess the answer went without saying. I'd come to understand that much. "Seriously, isn't it you they're looking at?" she protested. "That's unlikely. I'm pretty sure they are looking at you." Hearing the certainty in my voice, Nanami-san hid her scarlet face. Her gesture only made her look more adorable. It would be a problem, however, if Nanami-san wasn't able to enjoy herself because she was aware she was being watched. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything. Wondering if there was something I could do, I looked ahead of us and saw the perfect solution. It would allow us to hide from the curious looks and even match our current outfits. Nanami-san, what do you say we ride that? When I pointed to the vehicle in question, Nanami-san peeked out from behind her hands. When she saw what I was pointing at, she tilted her head in wonder. That's a rickshaw. I didn't know they had stuff like that here. Yup, a rickshaw. To be honest, I'd forgotten its name at first. I was impressed that Nanami-san was able to name it so naturally. To the side of the rickshaw stood a tough-looking young man with more muscles than I had, wearing a traditional livery coat. When he noticed me looking at him, he smiled at us warmly. You two there, would you like to take a ride? It'll make for a great memory, and it's perfect for couples. It seemed the man hadn't heard our conversation, which made us both look at each other, amused. He looked at us quizzically. That would be great. Thank you, I said. My pleasure. Is there anywhere specific you'd like to visit? Neither Nanami-san nor I was familiar with the area. Given that we'd chosen a rickshaw in order to avoid unnecessary attention, we decided to leave the road up to him. The seat in the rickshaw was a lot more comfortable than I'd expected. I felt like Nanami-san was sitting a lot closer to me than when we were in the car the day before. I guess that's because she actually was. All right, then we're off. With the young man's call, the rickshaw shifted dramatically. Our line of sight rose, and suddenly we saw the view before us much differently than before. I wondered if this was how tall people like Shibsu-senpai maybe saw the world. Nanami-san gave out a little yelp and grabbed hold of my hand. I squeezed it tightly to reassure her. As if feeling relieved, she looked at me once and then turned her gaze back toward the view. It was a strange experience moving forward with the wind in my hair even though I wasn't moving my body. The feeling was similar to riding a bike but still somehow different. I felt like I was suspended in midair, but I was firmly affixed to my seat. The ride wasn't unlike being in a car, but maybe riding a roller coaster was more similar. The view, seen from a whole new perspective, flowed slowly past me. The warmth of the sun felt just right, and the breeze was gentle and pleasant. Although Nanami-san gave several squeals of nervousness toward the beginning, she began to enjoy the view more fully once she became accustomed to the ride. She even started turning to me and chatting excitedly. The young man seemed to be taking roads with fewer people because there was little noise coming from our surroundings. From the top of the hill, we saw the ocean with a ship passing by. I want to travel on a ship one day. Where is it going? I wondered. While moving, the young man pulling the rickshaw explained the history and cultural significance behind several of the buildings we passed. Nanami-san and I never ceased to lose interest in the cityscape with its rich history, the buildings with their mix of Japanese and Western styles, and the stories we didn't get to hear at school. This must be what it means to travel, I thought. The young man stopped the rickshaw from time to time and took photos of us in front of various scenic backdrops. Perhaps it was a part of the service, but it really was making for great memories. In the photos, we looked like we'd traveled back in time, though I didn't know much about history, so maybe I just felt like we had. I suddenly regretted having declined my parents' invitation every time they asked me to come along. I just never thought a homebody like me would enjoy being on a trip this much. What was done, though there was no use fretting over it now. From now on, I would just have to accept their offers. Beside me, Nanami-san was enjoying the view and scrolling through the pictures we'd taken. She seemed to be really enjoying herself, as she snuggled up close and was humming a little. Doesn't wearing a kimono and riding a rickshaw make it seem like I'm the young lady of some noble family or something? A noble lady, huh? Well then, my lady, where shall we head once we complete our rickshaw ride? It doesn't matter where. Isn't that totally out of character? I said, laughing. Even I knew that we were messing around. Our delightful time on the rickshaw, though, had to come to an end. After having taken several detours, the rickshaw circled around the area and returned to where we'd first stepped into it. It seemed the young man had given us quite a lot of extra time, as he'd shown us lots of interesting places. They were definitely worth revisiting later. I'd just stepped out of the rickshaw when I was struck by an impulse to be a bit playful. "Ner hand, please, my lady," I said. Nanami-sen opened her eyes wide in surprise, but she immediately smiled and took my hand. Her smile made her really seem like the young daughter from a noble family, and I felt my heart skip a beat. I'd expected her to giggle and be more excited, so I felt like I'd been had. "Thank you," she said. I could have imagined it, but even her voice sounded different. It had a certain kind of luster, but was nonetheless calming and pleasant. I blushed when I heard it. After descending from the rickshaw with her hand in mine, Nanami-san looked up at me from over the frame of her glasses and stuck out her tongue. "Did your heart get all fluttery?" I had to laugh at both her expression and question. Usually she was the one pulling something and then I would respond, but this time it was quite the opposite. As we thanked the young man and were about to leave, he concluded our trip with a final act of great service. "Please use this if you have a chance," he said, handing something to us. It was a coupon to a local restaurant. Accepting it with gratitude, we thanked him one more time and started off toward our next destination. The young man bowed to us as we left. As we walked away, Nanami-san and I chatted about what a kind person he was. When we glanced back, we were surprised to see that he was still bowing to us. He continued to do so until we turned a corner and could no longer see him. He seemed much older than us, but I felt a great deal of respect for how seriously he took his work. That must have been what it meant to be a professional at something. That was amazing, wasn't it? I thought the same when they were dressing me in the kimono earlier, but that really was the work of a professional. Nanami-san seemed just as impressed as I was. Her dream was to be a teacher, so maybe she felt a particular resonance when she met adults like that. On the other hand, how did I feel? I looked at Nanami-san and squinted. She suddenly seemed so dazzling when I knew about how she had a dream she wanted to accomplish for her future and that she was working steadily toward it. I wondered if I would be able to find a dream like that for myself. I was wondering, do you have anything you want to do or be when you're older, Yashin? I don't think I've ever asked. To be honest, I don't. I always thought I'd be fine if I could live a normal life while getting to continue playing games, I said. My response was very uninspired, really. I worried that Nanami-san might be disappointed by the fact that I, unlike her, didn't have any plans for the future. She just mumbled, "I see," and grew silent. As I was regretting not having given a more thought-out answer, Nanami-san gave my hand a squeeze. Given that she didn't do that often, I looked at her questioningly. "In that case," Nanami-san said, hesitating for a moment. This, too, was rare coming from her. I waited anxiously to hear what she said next. A brief silence followed between us. We continued walking in silence for some time. It was almost time to give back our rental costumes. I wondered if we should return to the store and pick out a new set of costumes. I felt a bit disappointed that I'd no longer be able to see Nanami-san in her hakama. As I continued walking in a daze, Nanami-san opened her mouth to break the silence. "I hope we can discover your dreams for the future together." She spoke softly as she smiled shyly at me. "Discovering them together, huh? It'd be amazing if we could do that." "You're right. That'd be awesome." When I smiled back at her, she squeezed my hand tighter and happily swung it around. Even though I didn't have any definite dreams for the future yet, I felt like I had discovered one. To be with Nanami-san. That was the one dream I had that I absolutely wanted to come true. Others might say that a dream like that was small and pointless, but I didn't care because it was the first real dream I'd ever had. It wasn't like I was going to share it with anyone. Me alone knowing was enough. In my heart, where no one else could hear, I made up my mind to make that dream come true. "I can't sleep," I muttered to myself as I lay alone in bed. I'd slept so soundly the night before, but tonight I was wide awake despite my heavy eyelids. Is it because of the bed next to mine? I wondered, glancing over at the other bed. There, Nanami-san and Saya-chan were sleeping together like the two close sisters that they were. Maybe the unbelievable fact that the two girls were sleeping next to me was what was keeping me awake. Just how many times was I going to sleep in the same room as Nanami-san? Not that I wasn't happy about it, but still, I smiled at the two sisters as they slept soundly under one set of covers. Of course, there was a reason for all this. There's a reason for everything, but I most certainly hadn't dragged them in here or anything like that. The reason was simple. right about now, the adults in the next room were most likely in the middle of a booze fest. It was probably still ongoing, but since I couldn't hear anything, I couldn't be sure. Given the incident the other day at Nanarmisan's house, I was a bit nervous about being in a room with alcohol. That was why the three of us had evacuated to the bedroom. We had tried to compete against the adults by partying it up with juice and snacks, but Saya-chan and Nanarmi-san had both fallen asleep fairly early in the evening. Nanarmi-san was probably sapped of energy after walking around all day. Saya-chan's batteries were probably just as dead, since she and my mom seemed to have had a blast together. The fact that both sisters had taken a bath in the hot springs had probably only added to their sleepiness. Anyway, that was how I'd ended up awake all by myself. What should I do? Should I play around on my phone? Come to think of it, I haven't logged into my game at all today. Let's fire it up. Canyon, is anyone else here? The responses to my message in the chat room were immediate. Baron-san and Peak-san were both still up. They were always there for me, those two. I appreciated that. I also wondered when they actually managed to sleep. Baron, yo. What's up, Canyon-kun? Enjoying your trip. Peach, I'm here, but aren't you on your trip right now? Seriously, you should be making memories with your girlfriend. Baron, she's right. You can play games later. The event's wound down a bit now. Come on, Canyon-san. You're a high schooler. The night is young for you. When I used to go on trips, I'd stay up all night. Not only were Baron-san and Peak-san still awake, but they immediately had started in on me. Wow, things had gotten real lively, real fast. Thank God for that. Canyon, well, no. Actually, my girlfriend's asleep right next to me. The moment I posted my message, what had been a lively chat room came to a complete standstill. Wondering what was up, I sent a follow-up message, but still there was no response. It wasn't until several moments later that I finally got a reply. Baron, Canyon-kun, did you finally peach? Huh? And next to you as in do you really mean that? What's with their reactions? I thought at first, but when I reread my own message, I realized my mistake. It was impossible not to interpret my message that way. It seemed my brain wasn't functioning as well as I thought it was. Maybe I was tired too, but if that were the case, why couldn't I fall asleep? Canyon, let me rephrase. She's sleeping in the bed next to mine. We are not sleeping together. Baron, oh, I see. That's kind of boring. Peach, geez. I feel like I got all worked up over nothing. Baron-san's comment was somewhat harsh. I wondered what would happen if I were to tell them that she and I had slept in the same bed the night before, though that truly was due to force majeure. No matter, though, since I wasn't going to tell them. I went ahead and continued typing. There wasn't anything specific I wanted to ask them. I just thought that if I talked with the two of them, I might be able to fall asleep at some point. Instead, I seemed to be feeling more and more awake. Baron, so how are you enjoying your trip? Man, I didn't go on a trip with my girl's family until after we were married. Kids these days sure move fast. Peach, Baron-san, Canyon-san's definitely out of the ordinary. This would never happen with an ordinary high school student. Canyon, yeah, I know that better than anyone. Actually, my parents were the ones who got the idea. They said it was unfair that I stayed over at my girlfriend's place that time. Heck, I was surprised they even planned this trip. Baron, your parents, huh? I see. Then I kind of understand how they feel. Did Baron-san also think it was unfair? I wanted him to cut me some slack, but he really did seem like he was beginning to understand, or like he'd been convinced by something. He continued without waiting for my reaction. Baron, your parents must have felt really happy to see their son growing into himself. Since you were in middle school, you've always put gaming before everything else, right? And now, all of a sudden, you're going out on dates and